Okay. Great. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, masterclass, however you want to call it. It's a really joy and a pleasure to be here and to share about this topic that is very close and dear to our hearts and very important, and to share this information with as many people as possible, because if you care about your health and your well-being and you would like to experience true health, and Thad and I are going to go deeper today into what true health is all about, then the health of your gut is number one, and it's absolutely essential. And what Thad and I are going to discuss here today, or share and present, is beyond what we see in the mainstream, because now it's out there. At least it's out there. We know that there's such an important gut connection to the entire body. But some of the information that Thad and I are going to share today is not something that is available in the mainstream, even in the alternative holistic health circles. And so that's why it was a very important topic for us to discuss and bring and share today. And myself, I'm a regenerative purification, detoxification specialist and cellular regeneration specialist, and we're going to talk about what that is. And Thad is also trained by Dr. Morris, which is our teacher. And Thad is a phenomenal, I would say, a master iridologist. And that's another component that's another component that we are going to share here today, and really show you in depth just how your gut is connected to every single part of your body. I'm going to share about my own experience. Thad can share about his experience as well. But today we're really going to give you not just the talking and speaking about the details and the information, but also showing you visuals. Thad is going to show you some things when it comes to the eyes and the iridology, and how the gut is connected to every single part of your body. And then I'm going to share some visuals, and not for the faint of heart, but I feel it is essential for you to really see what it is that we hold inside. And why is it essential to clean it, to get it out, how to do it properly, in order to, like I said at the beginning, to experience true health and vitality, and to allow your body, give your body the ability, not to give you the body the ability, because the ability is there, but to give your body the environment to regenerate itself on a cellular level. So that's, in a nutshell, a little bit of what we're going to discuss here today, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. And Thad, if you would like to add something or introduce yourself a little bit more, then go ahead.
Yes, welcome everyone. We look forward to talking about this great subject. We've me and Noah have talked about this back and forth before many times, just talking about how we can share this information in a deeper manner, and just have a back and forth conversation that is very informative. And the reason why we're wanting to bring to light so much about the importance of the bowels is, of course, in our regenerative detoxification communities, we do understand the importance of the lymphatic system, and we're not taking anything away from Dr. Morris's teachings of focusing on that system. It's just he has brought that system so much to the light, because for so many generations in time, people didn't talk about the lymphatic system enough. They didn't talk about the role of the kidneys and the eliminative systems or channels to help with the elimination of that lymphatic waste. But what I have noticed, being a part of this community for all these years, because I've been following Dr. Morris since the very first video that he came out with, in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And what I've noticed is that it seems like that when people go on this journey, in order to really get their lymphatic system to start draining, they have to focus on the colon first, or the bowels first, and they have to get all of that opened up. So it creates a suction effect to help the central part of the body to drain. And then that helps the head to really start to drain, because that's even what Dr. Morse explained in one of his very original lymphatic system books. He was talking about there's three main, I'm not going into it real big, I'm just kind of giving an introduction. There's three main channels of elimination for the lymphatic system, and he said the colon's number one, the kidneys, and the skin. And so he doesn't talk about the colon as much anymore these days. He focuses mostly on the kidneys and the skin. So I like to bring that to light because I think it's very important. It can be overlooked so much, and people have a tendency to go straight for the kidneys and straight for the filtration of the kidneys, or filtration of the lymphatic system, before they really have worked a lot or enough on cleaning out the colon. And so that's one reason why I like to bring that to light, so that people can do their own experimentation and see how it works for themselves. Because until we do the experiments on our own bodies, we can listen to all this information, but that's where the rubber hits the road, is when we do the work on ourselves, and use the body as the experimental laboratory, where we just do these tests to see how the body responds. I have people ask me all the time, they're like, Thad, how long do you think this should take me to get myself, well from this condition, or be able to recover from this condition? And I'm like, well, I really can't answer that, because only your body really knows that answer. You just have to do the work. You have to go on the journey, so that's kind of my intro tonight, and I look forward to diving into this subject with you guys.
Well, Thad, I'm really delighted that you actually brought up the lymphatic system filtration, and you brought up the kidneys. As we know, the kidneys are responsible for removing waste through the urine. However, and this is what you mentioned, which is something that I observed as well, that there's not enough emphasis on the gut, and many people actually put too much emphasis on the kidneys filtering. But as we are going to show today, if every single organ and gland in your body is connected to the gut, then it only makes sense that we go straight to the source. Because although yes, we can do all the things for the kidneys, for the adrenals, we can do the herbs, whatever other method that we can use physically, emotionally, energetically to open up the kidneys, and fasting is a great way to help the kidneys. However, though, if there's parts of the colon that are associated directly with the kidney, and there's something blocked over there, then no matter how much we work on the kidneys, it's going to continue to stay blocked until we remove the block.
Yes, most certainly. And I just thought of a wonderful example of that, is that, there's such a thing as an emotional connection with every major organ in the body. Okay, well, let's talk about for a second. If the major emotion that's connected with the kidneys is fear, then how can you expect the kidneys to operate properly if you have lots of fear? Well, if you have a dirty colon, and the colon is responsible for a lot of your serotonin production, even more than your pineal gland, okay, then how, if you don't get your colon properly clean, then how can you produce enough serotonin? How can you help the central trunk and the head to drain properly, so the master glands will work right, so the pineal gland will work right, and then it trickles on down to help the kidneys work right, because the adrenals are working right. So see, again, we can trace it always back to the colon, and it's not saying that Dr. Morse needs to change his approach. It's not about that, because that was Dr. Morse's big rise to fame, to be his great teaching that he shares with the world, is about the role of the lymphatic system and the kidneys, and that role of that as well, because you see it so much in culture. But I also see such a major weakening of those kidneys because people can't handle their fear. And that's the other component. There's always that strong emotional component with the physical component. Same thing with the colon. The fear, anxiety, and worry greatly affects the colon. So of course, everything really comes back to the emotional, mental, and spiritual stability of the spirit living inside the body, and the body's just the vehicle or the spacesuit. But we have to have awareness first, and we have to see how all these things are connected. And that's why Dr. Morse's greatest teachings was explaining that we are more than just a physical body, and that we have multiple layers and multiple bodies of who we are, and all those have to be balanced in order to have true healing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and we will probably dive into that at
Mhm.
some point. And Dr. Morse mentions the colon and how important
Oh
it is to
yeah, he
clean
just
it, but he's not, yeah,
yeah.
it's not his
He just
main,
doesn't talk about it as much as the
it's not
kidneys
his
and the
main focus.
adrenals. Yeah, yeah,
It's not
yeah.
his main focus, correct. And uh, well, and this is what we're going to show again, how much the gut tissue, which is not just the colon, we're talking about the small intestines and the large intestines, and
Mhm.
what you brought up, that in regards to fear and different
Mhm.
emotions. And this is another big piece when it comes to cleaning the gut, are parasites. And although
That's right.
parasites and different microorganisms, fungus,
Mhm.
parasites are the biggest ones, they can live in different parts of the body. It's not
That's
just the
right.
gut. It's like they do live in other parts of the body. But if we focus for a moment on the gut and the small intestines, the large intestines, those parasites, they control the emotions, they
Mhm.
control the whole body, they control a person's mental state, they control a person's emotional state. The way I describe it is that when there are parasites and microorganisms that are present in someone's body, they literally hijack
Like a
someone's.
vampire. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we see all kind of disorders on the emotional, mental, psychological level, we try so many things, even nutritionally speaking,
Mhm.
but as long as those parasites are alive, then they're going to control the show. And that also applies to, and we'll go into, probably we'll have some questions in regards to cravings.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just fixing to say, is that a lot of people develop their emotional addiction, their emotional comfort to certain foods because of the role of the parasites craving those foods. That's why so many cultures love their breads and their starches and those things. And that's why certain cultures that they had to use those as survival food, like the English and the Irish, that's why they get kind of, irritable, because their microbiome has generationally been so used to that substance being in their lives. And so they have that emotional connection to it as comfort food, as well as the parasites are like, yeah, that's our food, leave that alone,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and it
so
really is a.
there's always these ways we can see that how it connects. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was just cutting out for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're looking at, it's a process. It's a really
Mhm.
process to
Sure.
release all these layers, and something very fundamental, I would say, to understand and to recognize is that when you are born, each and every one of us, a baby is not born with a clean slate.
That's
A
right.
baby can actually be born with parasites, and a lot of babies do because their mother carries them, their parents carry them, but especially the mother. Every single one of us was born with a stagnant, or the level of stagnation depends on the person and the family tree, but you were born with some level of lymphatic stagnation because you inherited it from the mother. Plus, you have inherited the shape or the condition of the GI tract
Mhm.
of your parents, especially the mother. So none of us
And lymphatic
was,
system.
and lymphatic system, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
none of us was born with a clean slate.
Mhm.
And then we compound that with years and years, unless you were born into a fruit eating family, which is
That's
not the
right.
case for majority of people. Then we compound those weaknesses and those issues with the wrong foods and whatever emotional experiences that we have in childhood throughout our lives, because we inherit the mother's emotional state as well and energetically. So the implications of cleaning your gut is beyond just, oh, I'm gonna have a clean gut.
Mhm.
It's going to influence every single part of your life and every single body, like
Mhm.
Thad mentioned already, that we are more than just a physical body.
Well, also we have to remember that we as a human body are an ecosystem. We're actually more bacteria than we are human cells, that make up who we are. So it's all about living in a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria. And it's designed, our bodies are designed to have 80% beneficial bacteria and only 20% of the cleaner type bacteria, the cleaning type, which is candida. That's why a lot of people that don't know any better, they think, oh, we need to eliminate all candida. No, candida is your friend. It's trying to actually clean up the excessive waste and, pollution in your body. So you need it. You just need it in proper balance, proper ratios. But because we've been so exposed to chemicals in our world and over sterilizing chemicals, especially, then we've gotten that balance so out of whack. And it's just like everything that we talk about in our communities, these systems have to be in balance. It's not about being perfect, because we're actually perfectly imperfect, but it's about having a balance.
Yeah, and having the correct information, what I like to refer is the truth, because as long as we're in the dark, then we just keep on stumbling. And I'm sure, Thad, that you've had and continue to have this experience of people coming to you as people come to me, and really believing and thinking that they're doing all the right things, because there's so much confusion out there when it comes to candida, when it comes to so many things, where the truth is very simple, and the answer is always the same. The variables come in when we look at the individual, because each individual has its own way to go about it, because we all come from a different starting point. But the answer for that is going to be the same answer for me, like everybody else here on this call. Our body is designed to consume particular food that is the easiest to digest, and that food, which is basically fruit, is also the number one food to clean you, to help the body regenerate itself.
Yeah, and it was created that way on purpose.
Exactly. And then we go into the layers of the different ways, different methods within this large umbrella of purification and regeneration, the different methods that we can utilize to help ourselves to return back to what I call the natural state. The natural state, where we're talking about the balance and the homeostasis. It's also about being in the natural state, which is a pure body, which is a clean body, which is a colon that is not overworked, stagnant, sluggish, and full of mucoid plaque, that is also blocking the absorption of so many essential nutrients, not just from the food that we eat, but the elements that we are exposed to all the time. And so the answer is always the same. And we look at the different tools, which is one of them we're going to discuss here today, is an extended solid food vacation, also AKA juice feasting. And we will mention also a little bit about fasting, because it's an essential piece. It's not so much about what we put in, but it's actually how much we stop consuming and giving the body a break and the opportunity to purify and to regenerate itself. And so, am I still connected?
Yeah,
I
still hear you.
Okay, cool. And so what I really wanted to share here, because for me, it was such an eye-opening experience. And that's why I'm excited about this presentation, and for Thad to show a few things. Because I had been a detox specialist for a few years. I know all the things. I had my eyes read actually by Thad, which was absolutely phenomenal. But it's all about timing, right? And I actually had a reading with Thad right before I started a water fast back in 2020. It was 21 days. And of course, it was life-changing on so many levels. But it was last year. So it was pretty much around a year after that water fast. And I had another eye reading. And in that eye reading, the person I was working with, she said, Noah, you got to go on a solid vacation. And I said, but I eat mainly fruits anyway. She said, yeah, the fruits are great, but that's your ticket, because everything, and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show my eyes and let that also just explain a little bit. The main issues for you, Noah, it's all around your gut, because the eyes show us the entire body. And that's it. I heard that, and literally it was 2 days later, I started with a fast. I did a dry fast, and then I went into a solid food vacation. It was 93 days last year. And that's some of what we'll be sharing here today about that experience, and how much of a game changer it was on so many levels. And today I'm on day 78 of a second solitude vacation, and the difference. That's why it's really cool to do several of these, because to see the difference between round 1 and round 2. And also for me, just to add, I'm counting days because it's fun and to show people what's possible. But really, for me, it's more of a lifestyle. I enjoy the liquids beyond being on a solitude vacation. And we shall see how long I'm going to go. But being on day 78, and this time around, with the experience of last year, I can really share from my own personal experience and the way the body regenerates itself. There's some questions about weight and shedding weight on an extended solitude vacation. A lot of people are concerned about that and how to rebuild. So we're going to address all those topics. But I want to, Thad, to just hand it over to you and maybe show a few of the slides that you have, really showing the connection between the gut and the rest of the body.
Yes, I would be happy to, because you were saying that, the other person that, was telling you go on a solid vacation, or solid a juice, fast and everything. They were saying that, your particular need is you need to focus on your colon, because that's where most of you can see it in your eyes. Well, did you know across the board, 100% of everybody,
Yeah.
you don't say that about iridology very much, that this applies to everybody, but it does apply to everybody with that, because I can say the one thing that everybody has in common, every single person, no matter how strong their genetics are, no matter how whatever, they always have that area that they have to focus on more than anything else, is that area around their stomach and bowel area in iridology, but yeah.
Thad, you know what? Uh, it's best if I share my screen.
Okay.
So people can actually see what we were talking about.
Okay.
And yeah, so let me just share my screen here for a moment, so you guys can really see what we are discussing here. So these are my eyes, pictures that we're taking. Those pictures were taken last year in Dr. Morse's office, actually, when I visited Florida. So almost exactly a year ago. Probably if I took my eye picture now, it will be a bit different, because I've noticed the difference even looking at my eyes. But this is what we are talking about. This is the colon area around the pupil. In fact, I mean, I can explain it myself, but I really enjoy when you explain it. So
Okay.
if you can just share what it is that we are looking at over here.
Well, first off, that whole area, that main core area, and that is her first by the pupil, is the first area that's usually roughly half an inch in kind of diameter. That is always the stomach. Sometimes it's flared out more, but generally about the first half an inch when we're looking at the iris after the pupil border, that's the stomach area. And then after that, it's the bowels that are right after that. And so that's why we're always seeing the stomach and the colon, or stomach and the bowels, are always the most congested area. Well, what else we see in here is that, yes, you do have some malabsorption going on. That's that little fuzzy rim around the pupil. That's malabsorption. That's how you can see it there. And you can also see it when you see the autonomic nerve wreath, which in Noah's eyes, and it is hard to see them sometimes in brown eyes, you can't see the autonomic nerve wreath as well pronounced, as well. You can't see it as easy, the actual ring, but it's still there. You just can't see it. It's in this area about where her cursor is, in a circle all the way around that edge of where it's the darker area. Yeah, that's the area, the border of the autonomic nerve wreath. Well, do you notice how all these little lines, all those little small lines starting at the stomach, and then they go into bigger lines? Those are all, first they start in the stomach and they're real small. That's showing that the nervous system has been stressed in that area due to the toxicity buildup. And then also you see the bigger lines, those are called radial solarises, and they can be classified in two different classifications according to Dr. Jensen. They can be classified as radius solaris minors or radius solaris majors, and the smaller ones are the minor ones and the bigger ones are the major ones. I don't go into that much detail when I give my reports. I just always say that you have radius solarises. Now, I will say some of them are more chronic than others, because they're really, really in depth, like really deep, and the ones that are chronic are the ones that go all the way out to the other edge of the iris, and that you can see that a lot of times. So Noah's, all of hers are mostly just subacute, and some of them or a lot of them are just acute, because they're smaller, finer lines. But what radius solarises mean is it means toxic tunnels. It just means toxicity. So that's another indication that you have toxicity there. But also all of this orange color, all these splotches of orange, like out here. See, if I could move my, go down even a little bit farther, that's your lymph nodes. And that's where you can actually see that when you were younger, Noah, more than likely you were probably just like so many of us, you were on steroids or antibiotics or some kind of sulfur that some kind of sulfur that you got exposed to. And that's what all of that orange is. And you can see up here in the top right by where you're, up in there, that's where you see those splotches. That's your lymph nodes around your face area that are congested with that sulfur, just like, the rest of these areas where you see that orange color, because orange is usually in a blue eyes indication of sulfur buildup, and that makes sense that you will see it in the lymph nodes because that's where it's supposed to be. That's where the cancer cells are supposed to be too, because that's how the system works. It goes from the lymphatic system, the channels, and it goes into the lymph nodes, and then the lymph nodes with their macrophages and helps break down that waste even further, and then it travels from the lymph nodes down to the kidneys for elimination, or it comes out other areas too, as it's going through the eliminative system. So in a nutshell, that's what we're looking at. But another thing that's very important to remember, and that is why Noah is able to have the level of success that she's able to have in her journey, is that her genetics are strong. Her constitution is strong. She has real fine, close fibers. Those are her nerve fibers. Those are close. You don't see them spread open with, big signs of genetic weakness, which is the constitution or the genetic strength or weakness of the body. The more the fibers are spread out, the weaker the constitution. And of course, when I bring up my information, you'll see that in my presentation because I explain the difference. And as Dr. Morris says, as well as Dr. Jensen, the stronger the genetic capabilities you have, the stronger your constitution you have, the easier you can recover from these conditions of weakness. And that's called cellular strength, but also remember, because I just said it in my recent presentation on iridology, is we should never feel like a victim to our genes and our genetic constitution. If you have weak constitution, don't feel bad about it. That's just what you were dealt with in life. That just means you may have to work a little bit harder to get your genetics to become back a little bit stronger, but they can change, because according to Bruce Lipton, genetics change according to our lifestyle and the way we live. So don't ever feel like a victim to your genes,
What I would like to add also is I have the eye pictures, my own eyes on the screen here, is that in iridology, the way it's practiced by us, lymphatic iridology, we recognize, and I can speak from experience because my eye color has changed dramatically in the last few years in particular. There are only two true eye colors, either blue or brown. So I always thought I had brown eyes, and I always wanted blue eyes because my mom has blue eyes. The whole side of my family from my mom's side is blue eyes because it's from my mom is from Eastern Europe. And I was always very like, oh, why didn't I get her blue eyes? Little did I know that I actually did. And I was just in Israel actually recently after many years, and I got a close look at my brother's eyes, both of them, and both of them have blue eyes. How do I know that? How do we know that? In a true brown eyes, you would never see these different shades of what seems to be blue and green. And seeing how my eye color has changed from darker brown, and now it's getting lighter and lighter to kind of like hazel color, and I'm starting to see more green. That wouldn't happen just on its own. So I don't need science to prove me anything to actually, I see myself how my eyes are changing. The brown color that we see in what's supposed to be a blue eye is what we've talked about, lymphatic waste. So
And
basically,
chemical
and chemical waste, right, waste in general.
Yeah.
It's just an accumulation of waste. And as I said earlier, none of us was born as a clean slate baby. And also that's another reason why many parents say, oh, my baby's eye color changed. It was blue when they were born, and then a few weeks later, it got darker. That is, yeah, go ahead.
And I've had a lot of people say that in our community was after they had some kind of medication that they were exposed to, you know? Yeah.
Either that or yes, it's just the
or just
the
lifestyle changes, you know, a lot of things.
Yeah. So when I got, again, the eye reading, and I really got to see like, oh my goodness, this is what's going on in my colon and how it's connected to every single part of the body. This is how we read the eyes. So as we said, this is the stomach, and then we have the gut, ascending, descending, transverse colon, and then around the eye, we map it out where we have different areas. This is the left eye. I'm not going to break it down. I'm sorry, this is the right eye. I'm not going to break it down, but basically we go from the head area, and then we start going down the throat, and we can see everything, the spine, the adrenals and the kidneys, the legs, the pelvic area. And that's how we can map the eye and see, oh, you've got issues going on in your liver, or you've got issues going on in your thyroid or whatnot. Or this is the head area. But this is basically how the body, every single organ, every single gland is connected to the gut tissue, because I will always see in the eye if there's any issues going on in, let's say, the head area. Of course, we are going to see massive stagnation or lesions or all kind of tunnels, as Thad mentioned, those radius solaris, going up from the stomach area, from the gut, that's the hub. That's the central hub.
Well, let's mention one more thing that I've noticed too, is that on your screen, see if you can bring the borders in, you know, like see if you can shrink the photos in so that you can put your right eye and your left eye side by side.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to show something that's important. Or you can move the left eye over. Yeah, there you go. Well, if you guys can notice, see how it's lighter, like it's lighter in the left eye, and then you can see more blue. That means that Noa's right side of her body, maybe it was, you know, it may not be as much now, but in these pictures when they were taken, it was an indication. Anytime you see a lighter side on one eye or a lighter eye in one eye versus the other, that means your right side of your body is more lymphatically congested. It has more sulfur in it than your left eye, because you can see a bigger buildup of the darker color. So see, that's very important, because a lot of people don't think of the body is it's vertically divided down the center, and so the right eye covers the right half of the body, the left eye covers the left half of the body. If you see stronger weaknesses genetically or constitutional wise on one eye versus the other, that means that side is more genetically weak than the other. And that's why also we have to test both arms for blood pressure readings, because you can definitely have different readings. You can have a weaker adrenals or kidneys on one side versus the other side. So that's always something very important to remember, because I have people all the time, they're like, Thad, do you need both my eyes to read my iridology, or do you just need one? And I'm like, no, you need both, because that's two different sides of your body,
Okay, so I wanted to show you the eyes. In fact, now that we have, after we've seen the actual eyes, if you could share your screen and show the gut embryo, the gut tissue. So
Yeah, I'll
this
show
is
it to you.
this is really essential to recognize and to understand, again, deeper understanding of the gut connection, that it begins from the moment that we become a human. When we develop in the embryo, we see how everything stems from the gut tissue, and that connection stays with us as long as we are in the body, want it or not.
That's right. This is what I was talking about how the body's divided vertically. And this is what I just presented to everyone just recently too. But what Noah's getting to, and see, this is where Dr. Morris himself talks about that. And he talks about, this is directly from, this quote right here is directly from one of Dr. Morris's readings that one of my clients, they sent me the reading they got from Dr. Morris, and they said, Thad, can you help me to understand his handwriting? I can't understand his handwriting. And then I took all of these quotes from Dr. Morris's own reading, and I put them in my own readings. And I love to share that with people. But look at what he says here. He says, many iridologists feel that because marriages between different races, we are finding that they call the eyes mixed. He said, I've never seen this where this divides the fiber colors. One either has brown or blue eyes. All other colors show levels of acidosis or lymphatic stagnation. Many drug deposits, metals, and various chemicals can change the iris color. Chronic weakness or congestion can change a blue eye to brown, and those related areas or totally change your iris to brown. In a brown iris, these areas always appear more black or darker brown, and so, yeah. And then here's a perfect example, even more of that. See how at the top left, that's a blue eye that doesn't have much going on at all, but you can still see the white ring and their autonomic nerve wreath around their colon area. And that's definitely a sign that they have stagnation still in their colon, even though they have very, very strong genetics and they have very little stuff going on, but they still have stuff they have to work on, of course. And then it goes to the white eye right beside it, that they still have very strong genetics, but they have heavy accumulation of lymphatic waste, but it's in the acute stage. But that's the stage of inflammation, the stage of activity, the stage of pain, the stage of edema and swelling. It's very interesting how we can see that, we can correlate that, because I've had friends before that, when I went on a retreat in Bali in 2019, there was one of the ladies that was at the retreat. She had eyes that looked very similar to this, and she started doing a lot of body work there at Bali. She started getting a lot of lymphatic massages and different massages and different types of, just different types of body work, we call it, and she started complaining, or talking about it after she got all the body work. She started saying, Thad, I'm having a little bit of edema, a little bit of swelling. And I looked over at her and I said, well, that's perfect. That makes perfect sense, because your eyes are telling you that you have that acute stage of lymphatic congestion, and that when you do a lot of body work, when your other eliminative channels aren't open properly, then that's the way the body's going to respond to all that lymphatic waste being moved around in the body from all the body work and all the massages, and when you don't have the channels of elimination open for that waste to drain. That's why I've told people for years, especially after I heard Dr. Morse talking about it too, is that you don't really want to do a lot of stirring up and a lot of body work on the body body if you don't have those channels open, because it's kind of like stirring up a whole crowd of people inside your body and having them all rush to the door to leave, but then they find the door is blocked. It's kind of like, in a way, it kind of puts a little bit more stress on the body's tissues because they don't have a place to escape. They don't have a place to leave. Now, of course, she did start having more perspiring out of her skin because she started having a little bit more rashes, a little bit more irritability of her skin, because that's what the skin was trying to do. It's trying to compensate for the kidneys and the bowels and the other areas of elimination for that lymphatic waste, But then, as you see, it goes down to another blue eye that's got strong constitution again, but they have an over acid stomach ring around their colon. That's why it's real white. And then it goes to the next one, which they have lots of sulfur buildup, and a lot of lymphatic stagnation in the subacute stage. That's why it's real yellow. But they don't have as much sulfur because it's not as orange. And then it goes to green, which green and brown are more kind of chronic, but brown is definitely more. And then this is where the blue eye is trying to turn to all brown. And then these are pictures of true brown eyes. Now, the top two photographs on the right, they could be blue eye, even though you don't see any blue. They could be. It's just maybe not enough trash has gotten cleaned out enough to see the blue coming through, but the bottom three, that's definitely 100% a brown eye. And the bottom, very, very bottom photograph, that's from a person from the Middle East. So that they're definitely more than likely a true brown eye because they come from that region. And that's what I said up here, is that most people that have European descent are mostly Caucasian, have true blue eyes. You're Asian, Spanish, Mexican, Native American, you're African. I meant to put that in there too. I just forgot, actually. I'll go back and I'll edit that in my PDF here, because the African races are definitely some of those too, But then going on, and then I'll go down to the colon too in just a second. But this shows all the drug residues and buildup in the eye. And then that bottom left one, that's the sulfur buildup in the eye. And that's why you see so much orange, and these are called psoriasis spots, or hyperpigmentation spots. And those can also be inherited, but that's a lot of times from toxic settlement, and also from drugs and different things, going on in the body. But then this was talking about the cellular constitution that we were talking about. Excuse me, the closer the fibers, the stronger the genetics. The more spread out they are, the weaker, so. And but if any of you guys would love a copy of this PDF, I'll be happy to share it with you, because I shared this in the videos that I've made. So it's not something that I'm going to charge for. But in the future, I'm going to make up another one of these because I really, really enjoyed it. But in the future, I'm going to make up one that's even way, way more, detailed than even this. And then I probably will sell it for a small price on my website. But this, for now, is just something I made up to share with people because I want to get the message out there.
Yeah,
But
if you could
go
send
ahead.
me a copy so I can actually share it in my group.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Catherine just commented that she would love a copy, and so if I share it in my group, then it will be just easy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to compress it because it was so much. The file was so large. I had to compress it, and then now it's more smaller size where we can share it with people.
Great.
But
Yes.
this is an example of strong constitution versus a weaker one. And this person with that blue eye on the left, man, her story was very interesting. She was down in Florida, only about an hour away from Dr. Morris, but she had not had a chance to go down there and get eye photos taken by him. So she tried to use her cell phone to capture a photograph of her eyes. And it was very hard for her to get enough detail to show up on the smartphone because she has such small weaknesses in her irises. So I told her, I said, well, I'm coming down there to Dr. Morris's level 2 class. So I'll just come by and meet you and get the pleasure of meeting you and all that. And then I'll take your photographs for you with my camera. And so that's what I did. And so that's why it was really hard to see all those things in her eyes, because they were always so small, but you can see she has really chronic malabsorption. See that real hazy line right there around her pupil? She has chronic levels of malabsorption, and then this person on the right, that is a very good example of someone that has major weaknesses in their constitution because their fibers are so spread out. I mean, it would take me a full report. I mean, that would be lots and
Yeah,
lots of
this is
information I would have to write out to tell you what all those things are.
this is massive. And Thad,
Yeah, and that's just one eye,
I would like to chime in
Yeah.
what you showing here with the malabsorption, which pretty much, I know you've seen many eyes, same for me. It's pretty much present for every single person, the malabsorption. It's just at various degrees.
That's
And
right.
Thad is now showing that brown circle
Yeah,
around the pupil. That's the malabsorption. So I wanted to
that's
chime
right.
in because one of the things that I hear constantly is people talk about deficiency. I'm deficient of this, I'm deficient of that, and la 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 la. And just to burst the bubble, there's no such thing as deficiencies. And what I mean by that, deficiencies are, we can correlate deficiencies to either malabsorption and or a malfunction of the responsible gland. So the adrenals, for example, are responsible for utilization of many different minerals that people are deficient of. Same thing with the liver. But and I stay focused on the topic today. And again, cleaning out the gut, that malabsorption, it plays a huge role in why people seem to be deficient. And remember, the body is a multi-layered machine and everything is connected. But that malabsorption can only be addressed by cleaning the small intestines, because that's why I see
That's right.
people get into the world of supplements and get into the world of I'll take this and I'll take that and I'll take this and I'll take that. And you know what? Even if you eat the fruits and you take the herbs, but if you're malabsorbed, your body is actually not absorbing much of what you're putting in. And that's why the answer is not to keep putting in, but to take everything out and give the body the opportunity to return back to its natural state, which is not malabsorbed. That you can absorb everything when you do choose to put it in. And the thing is when you get to that level of regeneration, your body becomes what I call energy effective. You need very little to be sustained and energized and vital, because all those issues of malabsorption and malfunctioning glands are no longer at play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so less is more. And cleaning out your gut is going to be the answer to all kind of quote unquote deficiencies. Because even when you go to holistic doctors these days and naturopaths, and all they do is pump you with supplements. And it's no different than pharmaceuticals. It's just addressing the symptoms. Now, you may see some sort of a improvement, but that is not a long-lasting improvement. It's just like putting a Band-Aid on a deep wound that is gushing. It's going to stop for a little bit, but then you take off the Band-Aid and you find like infection, and that wound was never taken care of. So it's the same thing with addressing the root cause of what we call, what we've been taught, deficiency.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I would add is the reason why a lot of people have problems so much with malabsorption is because they gravely underestimate how much certain substances build up residue in the body, and especially the
Yes.
GI tract.
Yes.
You know, like they say, I haven't read any verifiable research paper on this information, but I've heard some people say in our communities over the years that it can take 3 months just to get one serving of oil residue out of the colon, you know, because it takes that long to break up that residue. Because we all know we can do an experiment. We can take a jar full of marbles, pour just a little small amount, maybe just even half of a teaspoon of oil over those jar of marbles, and every single one of them is going to be coated with a residue that, and the only way you're going to get off the marbles is if you use soap. Okay, you can't use soap inside your body, so you have to use the art of detoxification, the art of things that will break that old lipids up, you know. And what a lot of people do that they mistakenly do because they don't know any better, because it all goes back to awareness, because you can't blame yourself. If you don't know, you don't know, you know. It's just, it goes back to that. And that's the main mission that we're trying to do, is just raise awareness. is that a lot of people, they'll go on a detox for a month or a month or two, and they'll be like, yeah, I did so good, now I could celebrate. And then they'll have another serving of some kind of a food that is emotionally sedating, that then it stagnates their body back up when their body was just starting to get to that stage where it was getting cleaner. And so that's when it's hard, because the small intestines is so much smaller than the large intestines. The large intestines is generally about the size of our wrist. That's what they say. And the small intestines a lot of times like the size of your thumb or something. And so you can't use colonics and enemas for your small intestines. So you have to use the power of the herbs and the fruits and fasting, of course, to break up all of that. And of course, you do have some absorption in the large intestines and in the rectum, but you don't have as much as you do in the small intestines. So that's why I brought this up from Dr. Morris again, that he says, it talks about that, about the dairy products, the white flour products. It starts the beginning process of coating and impacting the intestinal walls. And it's not just inside the intestinal area where the waste flows, it's in the wall of that, just like he said right here, the intestinal wall. It's not just on the inside. So even if we did do colonics and enemas, you still have to get that buildup to come out of the inside of that organ as well. So that's why we use the astringent fruits and the astringent herbs to help pull that mucus and that congestion from the wall of those organs. Yeah, but go ahead, Noah. Yeah,
And
go
the
ahead.
astringent juices.
That too.
That's so Thad, go ahead and show that diagram of the gut and
Yeah,
how it's
I
the
will.
tissue itself. And
I
then
will. Wait, see, I was already on it. I just opened up
yeah.
another one. Yeah. Okay, now let me back up. And now, all right, now this is what the beginning of that from Dr. Jensen, but I will show this photograph first because this is what Noah wanted me to show. First, this is showing the primitive gut tube that Dr. Jensen talked about in his book. And this is, I'll read the other part up above in just a minute, but this is what Noah's talking about. But then this was another photograph from Dr. Jensen's book called the Doctor-Patient Handbook. And it shows what we're talking about, the correlation between the large intestines and these different areas of the body. And it's very common, and I talk about a lot in this PDF. It's very common that we see people that have congestion in their descending colon, because by the time all the waste moves through all the small intestines and it gets over here to the descending colon and the sigmoid, it's already way more putrid and way more rotten and way more decomposed. And then by the time it gets over here, it has way more ammonia and just way more byproducts from that decomposing. So it greatly affects these weaker tissues over in this area. And then the job of the sigmoid is to remove all the water away from that waste so it can form a solid bowel movement. Well, the problem with that is that, remember, my friends, the water is the universal solvent. Now, the water that we get from our fresh fruits and vegetables, that is H3O. That is hydrating liquid that is structured. That's where we get most of our hydration from. Now, if the body is strong enough, it can convert like spring water over to H3O, but it takes that work of your body to be able to do that. But you can get a direct absorption with hydration from the living waters found in the fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's also why we believe so much in the juice fasting therapy, because you're flooding your system with great hydration. So that's even more helping to get hydration into those cells that have been dehydrated. But that's why a lot of people have heart palpitations and arrhythmias, because their stress makes their nervous system even more feel anxiety and all that. And then it makes those genetic weaknesses in that heart zone, it makes them feel those heart palpitations. And then if they have a genetic weakness in the sigmoid colon flexure, that little bend right there, then that can affect their spleen. And the emotions that affect the spleen are worry and pensiveness and anxiety. So see, when you have the spleen going on, and then you have that the heart zone going on, then it's kind of like a double whammy to our emotions. And so that's why, again, it goes back to how well we eat, because how clean the foods are that won't leave behind too much residue, and they're not as acidic, and they don't create as much mucus in the colon. And then also just working on helping to stabilize our emotions and our feelings as much as possible, you know. And that's why it's very hard for people to go on an all fruit fast for very long, because they start to get real sensitive. You know, I've heard people many times, they're like, Dad, I tried going all fruits for more than a month and it got to be too hard. I was sensitive to everything. I was crying every day. I was just sensitive to people's energies and emotions. And I was like, well, welcome to the real world, because that's really how we're supposed to live as humans. And we're just supposed to learn how to, you know, live in a way that we can stay in harmony and balance. It's just so much of our culture as being humans, we suppress all of that by escaping, watching a movie, eating certain foods, just some form of escape where we don't feel comfortable allowing ourselves to truly feel the depths of life, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. I would like to, this is really great to stay on this image right now. And I want you, if you could just show where the kidney and the sigmoid are connected.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
kidney
so
in the, that's in the
so
left eye now. That's the left eye.
so this is the sigmoid, and how it,
Well, no, that's actually the rectum, and then the anus is down here. The
well, I'm
sigmoid
sorry,
is,
yes, yes,
yeah.
I'm sorry, like the
And then
lower part, the
and then the
exit,
right kidney is over here by
and
the
but
appendix.
the
Yeah.
appendix, and this is, would you say this is also oh, this is the left or the right eye, you said?
This where my cursor is right here. This is where this diagram right here is the left eye
The
with
left,
the
yeah,
heart.
right.
And then this one over here is the right.
So this is the lower
Left kidney.
the lower portion of where the kidney is the ileocecal valve, no?
No, the ileocecal valve is over here. Like, let me show you. It's in this chart right here. Let me back up so you'll see it. See, that's the ileocecal valve right there.
Yes, so that's what I meant, in the same area.
Well, this
just
is
above,
the kidney on the right side.
That's what I meant.
The kidney on the left side is right here, where this first bend goes from the sigmoid to the rectum, and then the anus is down here at the very end.
Right. So
this is technically the rectum right in here, you know.
That's what I meant, though. But the rectum is just a continuation of the sigmoid. So whatever toxicity you have in your sigmoid is going to,
yeah, that's right.
It's going to flow into the rectum. And then here, where the kidney is the appendix area, but right above it is the ileocecal valve. The reason why I'm mentioning it is because the ileocecal valve is the connection from the small intestines to the large colon, which is it's a major issue for majority of people.
And you know why?
Yeah, one second
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
you say
go
why.
ahead, and then I'll say why.
What I'm wanting to show in this photograph or to point out is, again, one of the reasons why many people have so many issues with their kidneys. And not to focus just on the kidneys, but look at that. These are the most problematic areas for the majority of people. The sigmoid, and then the connection between the small intestines to the large intestines. And that's where the kidneys are, the correlation between those areas in the colon to the respective glands and organs.
That's right.
And now, please add what
let me add. And here's what also makes it very interesting that a lot of people don't know. And I'll go back to this chart just for a second so you can see it. Okay. Well, look, you notice how that's connected to the appendix? You know, it's connected right there to the ileocecal valve. Well, did you know that when you read about, and I've wrote about this before in some of my posts that I made, because when I did research on the, you know, on all of this, on all these different parts, it was very interesting. What I found out is that they said, when all of the waste is moving through the body, when the waste is moving through the small intestines, it's all liquid. You know, because if you ask anyone that has to have a colostomy bag and they get a colostomy bag in their small intestines before they get it in their large intestines, they'll say it always comes out liquid, you know, and that's the reason why. But did you know that the bacteria is different? The natural occurring bacteria in the small intestines is different than what's in the large intestines. So the appendix is the storehouse of bacteria for the large intestines. So a lot of people that have greatly weakened immune systems and greatly weakened microbiomes, their appendix is not producing the right type of bacteria that it needs to help that transition from the liquid waste coming out of the small intestines into the large intestines. So you have that problem with the bacterial change from the liquid waste to the large waste. And then also the waste will have a tendency to puddle down here in the bottom, of this cecum area, just like it will puddle over here in these bins, especially when you start to have prolapsing. Because when the transverse colon, when you take a person that has major prolapsing, this will start to put pressure on the small intestines. It'll start putting pressure on the reproductive organs of the woman, like the ovaries and all of that area, And then also you'll have major buildup and major genetic weaknesses in this bin, the hepatic flexure and the splenic flexure. And that just happens to be, when you look at the chart again, it just happens to be where the ear and the mastoid is. And how many children, when they get started off, they're blame mothers again. Some mothers, they're not able to breastfeed, and so they start them on a formula or on dairy or some type of milk, and their body reacts and they have a lot of ear problems. They'll have to get tubes in their ears, and it's not always just because the wrong type of food is being given to the child, but it's also because they'll have strong genetic weaknesses in those areas of the mastoid in the ear and the neck. And you can see that correlation, and that's
which I want to say that I remember as a kid, I would always have issues with my ears. And now, my friends, that I am releasing so much on the second round of juices, I can't even tell you how much I can feel my ears. I can feel them popping. I have things coming out. Actually, just a few months ago when I did it was like 20 days on just juice. And I don't remember on which day it was. It was a healing crisis, because my left ear, I felt like it was about to explode. I had so much gunk coming out of the ear, which is a great sign. But it's again making those connections. If you look back at your life, and if you had things like acne, dental issues, anything to do in the face area, in the ears, it's all connected, as being shown here right now.
Yes. It's very, I'm just messaging everyone on Facebook. I keep sending messages to everyone to let them know, come over here and talk with us and join us, Yeah. And wonderful Rhonda, down there, she made a post too, sharing with everyone. But let me back up a little bit, Noah, and let me read this up here, because this is very powerful, because I have, ever since Dr. G levels, I got so inspired, want to learn more about iridology, that I just started buying like all of the different Dr. Jensen books that I could get my hands on. And this was one of the books that I found. And you can get this book off of Amazon, this Guide to Better Bowel Care. It's only like $15, but it was a wonderful book. And if you don't read any other part of the book, read chapter 4, because chapter 4 is what's so powerful and is what really made me see the connection between the colon and the rest of our body. But this is what Dr. Jensen said. And to give you a little bit of background from that book, is that how he called this his greatest discovery. And for the man that was so informative to the world about iridology, for him to say this was his greatest discovery, that shows you the great importance of it all. But that's what he said at the first of this chapter. And what it led him to all that is he was having problems with his leg and his hip. And so he went to all these doctors and they couldn't find what the cause was. And then he started saying, something come to his mind, and he said, well, I'm gonna look at my iridology photographs. And he said he could notice that he had a strong weakness in that area of his leg and hip. And then that's when he started studying embryology and these other things to try to come up and figure out what that connection could be. And that's when he come out with what he says right here. He said, to learn more about the bowel reflex, which I named the neural arch reflex, I began to study embryology. I learned that by the second week of formation, the embryo takes the shape of the primitive gut tube and its nervous system begins to form. This means that the bowel tissue and the nerve tissue are very intimately related. And then by the 4th week, buds such as the lung bud and the liver bud begin to bulge out from the gut and nerve tissue. And then by the 6th week, most of the organ buds begin to form. These organ buds, I suddenly noticed, are covered with a membrane made up of the same tissue that formed the bowel and nerve tissue in the earlier embryo. That was when I realized that the tissue of the primitive gut surrounds each organ with a membrane. All of a sudden, it came to me. This is how the genetic weaknesses of the mother and father are passed down to the children through the gut and nerve tissue that becomes the membrane covering the organs. Where the bowel has an inherent weakness, the organ that developed from that area of the bowel also has an inherent weakness. This is the key to the neural arch syndrome, or neural arc syndrome. I could now see how certain areas of the bowel were reflexly related to specific organs. Any genetic weakness in the bowel could affect the performance of the organ associated with that part of the bowel. Toxicity or nutrient depletion in one would affect the other. This makes that part of the bowel and that organ more subject to breakdown and consecutively to diseases. And that's what earlier, we were showing when I zoomed in, and I'll do it again just so everyone can see. This is what he was talking about. This is from his book, and see, it even says, during the embryonic stage, the organs and limbs bud out from the bowel. And see, that's what that black area is. That's the primitive gut. And see, that says the heart bud, the liver bud, the umbilical cord, the leg bud, all of those things coming out, and it's very interesting how we can see that, so I'll leave it on the screen just for a second. So when people watch it back on the recording, and then if you look over here, this is something else we can talk about just for a second. It says it right here. He says on this area, if you see my cursor, it says the colon produces reflex conditions in various organs in the body. The organs opposite to the particular part of the bowel in the above chart shows what part of the body is affected by the colon directly. Symptoms in various parts of the body are related and many times eliminated when the intestinal flora has been changed. No matter what conditions we have in the body, it is altered by the bowel, whether it is good or bad. From the Science of and Practice of Iridology by Dr. Bernard Jensen. So that's what we are talking about. But then one more thing I want to talk about before we go on is, see, here's the chart, and see, that was why I made the presentation flow from that, talking about that, to now to the chart, because you can see how he made the chart in the way that he did. Is that the center part is the pupil, over here in the right eye, if y'all can see my cursor, and then right around that's the stomach, and then this is what we were talking about. There's the cecum that starts in the bottom, and there's even the appendix that comes off of that. Okay, and then you see this, and let me zoom in some so you guys can see it even easier. Yeah, let me back up just a little bit. Okay, now see this white rim around it. See where it says right there, autonomic nervous system. That's also called the autonomic nerve wreath, or the collarette, or the bowel wall. They're named different things. Dr. Morris, he was like, don't call it the autonomic wreath, call it the bowel wall, because he said when you see the shape, and when you see it's all wavy, and when you can see the autonomic nerve wreath and how you can see it's like definitely distinguished, and you can see it in the eye, that's the shape of the bowels and how they're all wavy and curly. And you can see, even when you see prolapsing in the transverse colon, you can see how it dips down right there above the pupil, and I can show you that in just a second. And then see how the gallbladder lays right on that line, the pancreas, the adrenals, then the urinary tract, the bladder, the parathyroid and the thyroid on the small intestines, the pituitary and the pineal. All those are neural arch connections. And then see that bend right there, that's the one that affects the medulla and the mastoid. The mastoid is the bone plate behind the ear, or and the medulla is right there beside it. So see, the ear, the mastoid, the medulla can all be affected by the hepatic bend. That's what is in the right eye. And then when you go over here to the left, it goes again. It goes just the opposite direction. It goes the transverse colon, and then right above the transverse is the pituitary and the pineal. And then the hypothalamus is found right there in the animation life, right in the very center. And it's also found right here in the inherent mental. And it's also found right here in the ego pressure area. Those are three main areas where you can see the hypothalamus. And then there's the big splenic flexure that again affects the medulla, affects the dizziness center of the equilibrium of the left side of the body, and it affects the mastoid and the ear and all that. And then right down, going farther, there's the descending, there's the heart, and then there's that big sigmoid bend we were talking about that can affect the spleen, can affect the ovaries and the testes, and then it goes down the sigmoid, and then it goes right between the urinary tract and the prostate of the male and the vagina or the penis of the man, and then there's the adrenals and the kidneys, and then the scrotum perineum, of course, in the male, and it's very interesting. And then that's why I see a lot of congestion a lot of times, and when I give iridology in this bottom area, because look, it's the pelvis, the peritoneum, abdominal wall, the groin, and even the leg and knee and thigh, and all that can be congested a lot, just because of all the buildup in the bowels,
And Thad, I want to add here, and you can stay on this image, because
Okay.
what you're showing, the lower part, the sigmoid, which is such an issue
Oh,
for,
yeah,
again,
right
the
here.
majority of
Yeah.
people, the sigmoid, and even the cecum on the right eye, is that so many women, and to not get into too many rabbit holes, because of course this is, as you can see, it's a very large, extensive topic, but so many women experience difficulties with their periods, which are
That's
very
right.
unnatural. And this is all due to the heavy congestion and toxicity accumulation in this area, because as you can see how the ovaries are affected, the pelvis, and of course the uterus, this whole area, the lower part
That's right.
of the female body is affected by
That's
these
right.
areas of the colon. And so when women think or believe that PMS is normal, that heavy periods are normal, that periods are normal at all, that the bleeding is merely a way for the body to try and push that toxicity out. For us women, we have one additional channel that the body utilizes, because the body is smart. It's preparing itself every month to host a baby. And it's not going to host a baby in a toxic uterus. So the uterus utilizes the bleeding as a way to remove waste. But in a clean
right.
body, that does not exist. And as we're showing you again and again, the colon is such a major hub for that accumulation of toxic waste.
That's right. That's one reason why they say that you guys are very fortunate to live average longer than males, is because your body has a little bit more self-cleansing capabilities, and you're much easier to be in touch with your emotions and things. So you can handle a lot of stuff sometimes easier than us males, but look right here, just it was very ironic what, Noah was talking about. Look what Dr. Jensen said himself. He said, another really common example of the nerve interference that can result from chronic irritation at the sigmoid flexure of the colon. In females, this reflex area most associated with this is the ovaries. I know from experience that many an ovarian condition or menstrual problem is associated with this. I cannot help but wonder how many doctors think of the bowel when their patients complain of these troubles. And then to back up, because it's very important as well, because these are the reason why I made this little slide here, is because these are the things that I see all the time in iridology. It's very common. I see the common example is the neural arch reflex in the heart problems. Diverticula located midway down the descending colon can reflexly interfere with the nerve impulses to the heart, resulting in arrhythmias or heart palpitations. Also, diverticula are excellent collection sites that can produce gas from fermentation, resulting in pressure upon the heart that mimic heart attacks. Well, okay, let's pause there a second. Think about how many people eat the wrong kind of foods that are combining in the wrong way. Even when we're trying on this fruit and vegetable journey, we try to combine fruits with other foods, and then it causes fermentation. And then that fermentation creates other symptoms that we experience, including heart palpitations and heartburn and all kind of things. And then people start getting their mind too engaged, and they start thinking too much into it and start worrying too much. And then it makes it where it exacerbates separates this feeling from the nervous system, of what's going on because of all these different things that are, affecting their body in these different ways. So the reason why we take the time to talk about this is to raise awareness, so that when you know what's going on, you can center yourself and you can talk to yourself and talk to your body like the young child within, and you can say, no, it's okay. I know what's going on. I know what I did. I didn't eat the right way, and I had a little bit of, imbalance. Or we can sometimes have, like Noah was talking about earlier, we can have such weak adrenals that we can have poor sugar metabolism, and we can even have gas from that. Because there's been many times that I've eaten just fruits, and I may have eaten them too fast, or I may have drank my juice too quick, and I didn't digest it properly, and so I even had a little bit of gas from that. So that's what I'm giving an example. There's many times we can have things going on that it creates different symptoms, and then we get the mind to engage, and we're like, what's that symptom mean? Where's it coming from? Why do I have a headache right now? When all these symptoms are really just indications that something's going on, but it's not an indication that you should start having worry and fear about it. You should just have the desire to learn more about what these symptoms mean, and then once you understand what they mean, then you can take it farther than that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the last thing that I wanted to say, that in this example is another common to see is the spleen weakness from the sigmoid flexure weakness. When one has a strong weakness in the spleen, they can also have a tendency to worry and have chronic levels of stress and anxiety. It makes it even more complex when the individual has both a neural arch weakness in the heart and sigmoid areas. Okay. And
Yeah.
then to wrap it all up, and then we'll go on if you want to. Um, is this perfect example. So in our community, I was always worried about everything. And I said to myself, even before she sent her eyes to me, I said to myself, I bet she has a strong spleen weakness, because it was just ringing in my head with intuition that I was like, she's acting like she's having a spleen weakness. And when she sent me her eyes, I was like, bingo, there it is. That red arrow, that's the genetically weak spleen issue that she had. But also she has a lot of other stuff going on. The reason why she was acting the way she was is this yellow area. That's a chronic hypothalamus weakness in her animation lifeline. That's very important. But then it makes it even more complex. It's right across from the adrenals. The blue arrows, the adrenals, right beside, it's actually adrenals right beside the thigh, and then she has the ovaries. That's ovaries right there beside the spleen. And then right in the middle, that's the sigmoid flexure. And then she has a chronic heart zone weakness. And then over here is the thyroid and parathyroid. So see, she has all these things going on. And then see, her autonomic nervous system, her wreath or her bow wall is wavy. See all those, the waves, and it looks like rope, and it has the peaks and valleys. That means that it's all irritated. Her nervous system is irritated and her bow wall is irritated. See that faint red ring around her stomach? That's the stomach ring. That means she has an under acid stomach ring. That means she doesn't have enough stomach acid to digest her foods properly. And then plus she's a blue eye. There's some stress rings. She has sulfur buildup. She has lymphatic congestion, both in the white level as well as the yellow level. So see, she has so much going on, and that's just one eye of the body. You can imagine what the other eye looked like, of course. And so that's why I'm giving an example that sometimes things can be compounded. And then on top of that, she smoked cigarettes, and she couldn't ever give up smoking cigarettes. The more and more I talked to her about it, because she was using the cigarettes as a crutch. That's what she always did to try to relieve some stress, like a lot of people try to do, with cigarettes, because of the nicotine and just the whole habit of the reason why people use cigarettes a lot of times for helping relieve stress, But yeah, go ahead, Noah, if you wanted to say something now, and then we'll go on to something else.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we can be here for hours on end. I would like to, if you can unshare your screen, Pat, for a moment.
Yeah.
And just to check in with those that are present now, just put it in the chat. We're going to open up for question if you wanted to ask that in just a moment, because there's something I would like to share before we get to the question segment, but in the comments, just to share anything, okay, because this is a lot of information, and yeah, just anything that maybe you have like a aha moment or anything that you're receiving from this. Catherine's saying that it's been so fascinating and eye-opening. Indeed, that's what I always say in my eye readings. Like, it's an eye-opening experience, and bringing back again how I started with the motivation, right? When people ask, like, how do you stay on an extended solid food vacation, or on the fruits, as that said, it's the why, because we do. I'm still being challenged, some
Oh,
days,
yeah.
when the cravings come up, or it's less and less, but it's what keeps me on track is that why. And when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see that connection, and this is something every single person must know, and every single person that is thinking about conceiving a child must see this chart of the gut tissue and how it's being formed, and to know that the baby inside mama, that's what's happening right now. And whatever she's passing on to the little one is going to need to deal with that, and actually even more so, because each generation is actually weaker. And so, yes, go ahead, Thad.
I was just going to add real quickly is that we have to always remember too, that even Dr. Morse has said it before, that his true mission on earth is to come in the back door to help you to have a spiritual awakening, because he uses the fruit, because he really would like, if he could go straight to the punchline and tell you that he's trying to help you to have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual awareness, to help you to find your true self, then it would scare people away. They would run away because they have so much childhood trauma. But what has he done? He's used the fruits as the back door to inspire you to be able to do that, because we want to correct these things, as Noah's saying, so we don't pass these emotional baggage on to our children as well as the physical, because that's a lot of times why people have problems in their early stages of their childhood, is because their parents had so much going on as well.
Yeah, yeah. And even on a spiritual level, it's because it's all connected. And so much of the disconnection that we experience in the world at large, and the knowing of the truth of who we are, we can correlate it back to a stagnant body, and it has implications, because all the glands are spiritually connected to different energy centers. And when the body is blocked, energetically, things are going to be blocked. Spiritually, things are going to be blocked. So in a sense, it's like, yeah, we're coming through the back door talking about solid food vacations and fasting and fruits and whatnot. But ultimately, the process of purification and regeneration is, as I said earlier, is to bring us back to our natural state. And our natural state is also a state of complete love, complete joy, and the complete knowing of who we truly are. And that is freedom beyond just this physical body, but in this physical body that we came here to play with.
That's right. I was just listening to a psychologist, and this lady, she's a professional psychologist, and she's been a psychologist for many, many years. And someone asked her, they said, what is the greatest thing that we can teach our children? She said, the greatest thing you can teach them over every other thing is to have empathy. That's the greatest thing of all, because she said if they don't have empathy, they don't have anything, because everything goes back to having empathy.
Yeah. And thank you for the comments here. Yvette saying that it's very helpful to understand how the body works and what the eyes are telling us. And Rhonda, wonderful. She's, yeah, what a relief. Early on, she said, I was going nuts over kidneys not filtering, but I began to do better as I did incorporate the fruits and juices. So glad to understand the gut bowel care as worthy of attention. Makes so much sense. Loving that term, solid food vacation. You've got my attention. Love it, Rhonda. And if you want to know more about like who coined the term solid food vacation, I highly recommend looking on YouTube, John Rose. John Rose was an inspiration for me also after I received that eye reading, and he speaks about the solid food vacation, which I love that term even more than juice feasting. And what I say, everybody's going to have a different path. Like some may continue on liquids for the rest of their lives, or majority of the consumption is liquids. That's not even the point. What I say is to at least once in your life. And if you put things in perspective, there's a lot to life. And so dedicate 90 days, at least once in your life, to go on juice only.
That's right.
I just, there's nothing I can recommend more. And within the window of juices and such, to also incorporate the non-consumption, the fasting, which maybe Thad and I will do a separate video just speaking about fasting and the art of fasting when we look at water and dry and whatnot. And so, but once in your life to dedicate to 90 days to go the distance. John Rose, that's what he says, go the distance, 90 days.
Take the hero's journey.
The hero's journey. And I can speak from my experience, again, doing 93 days last year and now second time around. And it's like once, yes, my recommendation, but definitely do more than once in your life, because here's when we're looking at the scrubbing, you know, and I remember a couple of months ago, I was actually cleaning someone's kitchen and the sink was so disgusting and coated with like gunk. And how you go and you scrape the first layer, but then you got to put more detergent and scrape it again. And I had to put more detergent and scrape it again. And it's the same thing, layers. And you saw my eyes. So not everybody's dealing with the same load like I do. But if that is your case, then it's not going to be just one time 90 days. And also we got to consider what do we do in between. So it's not just doing 90 days and then go and binge on whatever crap that is going to start accumulating again. But to really make this a way of living, to make this a sustainable way of living in which your body continues to be relieved of the toxicity and the waste, and it can do the job of purification and regeneration automatically because it knows how to do it. Okay.
Well, Noa, let me add to that right quick, is that I'll give another example of what Noa is explaining. Excuse me, I swallowed my saliva the wrong way. Is that I had a client one time, she was from California as well, and she had been working a lot on helping her body to recover from a lot of things she was had going on. And so she had been already doing a lot of work, taking a lot of Dr. Morse's herbal formulas. She'd been doing all fruit mostly for a couple of the herbs and lots of scrubbing and cleaning as much as she could, but she had never went on a liquid fast. She had never stopped eating fibers, you know, except besides the herbs, you know, because I recommend while you're on a liquid fast to still use the herbs, because that will help even scrub even deeper because you don't have the fiber in the way, you know. But my point is that I convinced her, after working with her, because I worked with her for a year, I convinced her to do her first juice fast or solid food vacation. And she said, well, Thad, I'm so disciplined as an individual that I'm going to just see how long I can go, because I'm not going to put a time limit on it. I'm not going to say how long I'm going to go for because it's my first one, but I'm going to see how long I can go, because she had already had all this groundwork. Because, you know, most people, they're not going to go as long as she did after I tell you how long she went for her first juice fast. But she said she kept seeing benefits, so she kept going, you know. And so she did it first for a couple weeks, and then she kept getting out massive amounts of trash and from her colon. And she was like, Dad, I'm so surprised how much trash is coming out, because I'm a tiny woman and I've eaten all this fruit and taken all these herbs, and I haven't seen as much trash coming out. And then she said she kept going. So she went from 2 weeks to a month, and then she kept going. And that was before she was even taking any GI Broom. And when she was doing the liquid fast, because she had been trying some GI Broom and some other bowel cleansers, you know, before that. But she had not started it because the reason why is she wanted to see how much waste she could get out before she added that in while she was on the liquid cleanse. And so she kept seeing all that trash coming out, and then she could see the difference when she did add in the GI Renew or the GI Broom. And she said she kept seeing old trash coming out, even though she was only eating solid food, juices. Well, she went from 1 month to 2 months. And she went to 3 months on her very first 90 days, old trash coming out because she could see the difference. I've had many other people that have said that a lot of times it takes 90 days to fully see the colon get clean enough from the old waste of what we've consumed from the last year, the last several years of our life. And she said it was totally life-changing because she never thought that she was had that much buildup in her tiny little body. But I remind people that we are amazed at what the body can do and how much abuse it can take. You know, both John Wayne and Elvis, both when they died, they had over 25 pounds of waste, fecal matter. They say that, I heard it just recently on a video on TikTok from a colon hydrotherapist, and they said that it was actually 45 pounds for Elvis, because Elvis was on massive pain medication when he died. And they said he had that much buildup in his colon from old fecal matter, you know, because he was severely constipated, you know. And so that's what I'm giving an example that they've said for years. I've heard all the greats say that, you know, what's so ironic is we die from being suffocated from our own waste. You know, we don't die from all these labels, the titles to all these different diseases. We die from suffocating from our own waste. So that's why the art of purification, the art of elimination is always more important than what you're going to add. I have people all the time coming to my parents' health food store and they're like, I've got deficiency in this, deficiency in that. I need this vitamin, all these things. I'm like, well, have you ever thought that first you need to eliminate before you add all that new stuff in? Because we're always going to have to practice the art of elimination more than the art of what we add, because our society of humans have been so in a bad habit of over accumulation, overeating, and all these things that we eat, they just congest the body way more than normal, because also a lot of the things we eat was never designed to be put in the human body, like dairy products. I mean, why do we expect the body to, I mean, we shouldn't expect any less that the body's going to respond in that way, because that's a substance that was never designed to be put in our bodies. But then to take it even further than that, that's baby food. That's not even human food. That's not even like our own mother's breast milk. That's not even adult food. That's baby food, you know. So see, we have to start thinking logically about these things we subject our body to, and we have to start loving our body like the young child within. And we have to start saying, you know, hey, I can't put you through that because I need you. I need you as my vehicle so I can experience this world, you know.
Yeah, Thad, thank you for sharing that, which is a perfect opportunity for me to actually show what some of what I've documented last year. And Yvette, I'm gonna answer your questions in just a bit, but because Thad mentioned that woman that went on a 3-month solitude vacation, and same thing for me. You look petite woman, and of course I was also, my weight kept going down on that solitude vacation last year, which I'm going to speak about in a moment. There's a question about that, dropping weight and then how to gain that again. So just to pause here for a moment, if you are live here with us right now and you don't feel like watching some waste pictures, then you can just turn your eyes or cover your eyes. And if you're watching the recording, same thing. But I feel this is essential to post. This is to show. This is essential, because me and Thad can talk about waste all day long, and you can go online and see mucoid plaque pictures and whatnot. But I feel it's essential because this is me and this is my experience, and these are my pictures. So it's not like I found it on Google or anything like that. The things that I fished out of the toilet myself.
They can also minimize the screen so they can still hear what you say. Yes. But they don't have to see that. Don't close it out or you'll close out the presentation, but just minimize it and you can still hear us, you know.
Yeah. Just don't see the visuals. And Yvette, I'm just going to answer this question in terms of the GI broom and the other herbs while juicing. Absolutely. Highly recommend that, like Thad said, to support the process. I do have a YouTube video on my channel that I recorded last year as I finished my 93 days. And I addressed a lot of questions and how to go about an extended solitude vacation. So you go to my channel, the Soteria Foundation, Noa Lakshmi, and you'll find that video, which is, as I said, a lot of information. So I'm going to share my screen and
Great. I'll go there.
okay, fantastic. I have I've got a couple images here, or not a couple, but I want to show, before I go into the pictures of last year and some of the waste, I really want to show this image right here.
Well, no, before you comment, can I explain to them that
Yeah.
most of what you see there is mucus? You know, because most of that whitish, yellowish looking stuff, that's mucus, you know? Yeah.
Well thought. In this case, actually, I thought it was mucus too, but it's actually not. There's mucus in it, but
Well, it
when
could be
it's
mucoid plaque and
when
mucus. That's what I'm saying.
no, this is actually a worm.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So this is when it's mucus, it actually breaks quite
Okay.
easily. When it stays long like this and it doesn't break, this is warm.
Okay.
And same thing, you look at petite Noah. I've stopped eating meat when I was 12. I never ate fish in my life. I stopped eating dairy years and years and years ago. Eggs, like all the things. I've been mainly on fruits for many, many years. I've had deviations. I had issues with overeating, all the things. But when you're looking at somebody that haven't had meat in 28 years now, and because these creatures can live in the body for several decades. And so this picture was taken actually earlier this year in June, and that was after 4 days of a dry fast. And then I had some coconut water, and I went to the bath. It was either coconut water or watermelon juice, I don't remember. And then I went to the bathroom and this came out.
Wow. Did you feel any like sensations of something moving in your, like, I'm talking about like a pain or in sensation that was breaking free and it was coming out, you know?
No. There was no that, but that what I did experience after this, immediately, I felt the difference of cravings, like just no.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Yeah.
yes. So this comes to show again how these creatures control what we think. Oh, my body is telling me to eat this and that.
Yeah. Well, also, I was going to add before you go on, Noah, we can also be exposed to parasites from our animals and from our environment.
Correct.
You know, because we can get them just from handling the animal, you know, too, you know. Yeah.
Yes, that very, very true, especially parasites in dogs. And that's like a whole other conversation. But okay, so these are the pictures that I have. I'll show some of them. I started taking pictures on day 16. And I went all the way to day 78, which is what I'm celebrating today. And last year, though, I stopped taking pictures of day 78 because I just didn't feel like taking pictures the last 20 days there. And this time around, I haven't been taking pictures. I have been releasing, but not as much. The last few days have been major release. It's very interesting, and then interesting to see how the emotional state is in line with what's being released. So this is where this was day 16, and what you're going to see mainly, it's like mucus and mucoid plaque. And
hold on, Noah. I think the other photograph, you're going to have to close it first because it's on top of it. The one with the worm.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to close it first.
Can you see it now?
No, we see the folder with all the
yeah. I think I need to.
So you may have to minimize the folder with all the other photographs, and then you can see the other photo that you're trying to show us.
No, I think I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to share it again.
Okay.
And I will need to do. I think I will need to do this, and this. Okay. Okay, so you can see this
there
now?
You go. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is day 16 here. And I want to see if you're going to see. No.
Now see the other photos blocking it. Yeah.
Okay, so let me stop sharing again.
You may just have to minimize or close out the day 16, unless you put them side by side. You could probably put them side by side.
I think I need to just share my whole desktop. So now you can see the The whole thing of the
Yeah, we can
pictures?
see it all.
And you can see the individual picture?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Okay, and can you see the new picture that I just opened?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, so this is what
Yeah,
we're
it's
gonna
working
do.
better now.
Okay, great. So this was day 19 after an enema. And
Great.
these were all like in like hard.
Were they like rubbery?
Rubbery and hard at the same time.
Did they have a strong odor, like a smell?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So this is mucoid plaque.
Yeah.
Some people get like, big things of mucoid plaque. For some, it comes out in little ones like this. Then I jumped to day 33. Again, this is just mucus that comes out. And all this mucus, actually, when we talked about malabsorption and things being stuck to the walls, it's all mucus substance, kind of a material.
That's right. And I was
go
just going to add, the reason why is because mucus is an alkaline buffering agent produced by the mucosa membranes to trap and encapsulate the acids.
Exactly.
So you're going to see the mucus coming out, but it has the acid and toxic waste contained within it.
Yeah.
And depending on the color shows how much it's degraded. Because if it starts off clear, that's the first stage. That's the it's not even really gotten deep. Once it turns white, it's the acute. Turns yellow, it's subacute. Green, it's getting more closer to chronic, and then black is chronic. Yeah.
So this is day 40 on the left right here. This is day 44. Again, this is all mucoid plaque
mixed with mucus.
Mixed with mucus. Let's see, I've got this is a really good mucoid plaque picture. This and I wrote here, this was day 51, and I did an enema in the morning, and it was a psyllium husk mix that I did the day before
with lemon juice. Because
the enema with lemon.
Yeah, because man, lemon, Dr. Arnold Ehret group, called the Ehret fasters, it's the mucusless healing diet, the fasters, like to Professor Spira and all them, they've talked about for years, because Dr. Arnold Ehret talked about doing lemon enemas.
Those are the enemas that I do. I don't do just water. I'll either do lemon or the heal all tea.
Yeah. Well, you have to be careful within a lemon, though, when you're not used to it, because it can cause some spasming of the colon, because it can be quite aggressive.
Yeah, it needs to be very, very little lemon.
Oh, yeah. It's sometimes even just a matter of 5 or 6 drops in a whole quart of water. Yeah, because I tried it several times too, and if I put too much, it would make my colon spasm, and I couldn't hold the water in long enough.
Absolutely.
But also, Dr. Jensen, before you keep going, Dr. Jensen talked about you could do bentonite clay enemas as well.
Yeah, I found that to be a bit messy. I tried so many things last year, and it was just too much of a mess. So I'm like, nah. Okay, so this is day 52. This was just morning with no enema.
Wow.
This just came out in the morning. You can see and I don't know, some of it sometimes I didn't really dissect. It could be mucus, it can be other funguses and microorganisms that do come out in this way. I remember this day very, very clearly. It was I was on melon juice all day. I wrote it here. And then in the evening, intuitively, my body said grapefruit juice, which is very, very astringent. And then after the grapefruit juice, I went and eliminated this. And this is not just mucus. This is that can be funguses, that can be
biofilms, all kind of stuff.
All kind of stuff.
But it's good to see it coming out, because you should be celebrating when you see that stuff coming out. You should be like, yes.
Oh, absolutely. That's why every time
I know you were, but I'm talking about just generally speaking. I tell all my clients, I'm like, that's the time to celebrate.
Yes. And this was day 55, again after a lemon enema, and you can see that it's actually seeing these things kept giving me motivation as well. That's the whole thing of like, the longer you go, or the longer I go, it's actually more like the more I don't want to stop, because when I saw this came out of me at day 55,
Yeah.
And when I kept seeing things coming out, like I've got pictures here of day 62, you know, like, and the smell and everything. I'm like, I'm not stopping now.
Well, once you get it started to break free, you don't want to stop then, because then more and
Ex-
more stuff can come out. Because the more you get it to break free, the more and more stuff's going to keep coming out. You know.
Exactly. So that this is, for example, day 71.
Mm-hmm.
This is straight up mucoid plaque.
Yeah.
On day 71, that was in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And other things that came out day 71,
Yeah.
things like that. And then I have the last picture here from day 78. Again, same, just
Mm-hmm.
mucus and strands and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the portion of the presentation that I wanted to share that. And now if you feel like watching the
Well,
screen again,
if
then welcome
if
back.
anyone in our community has a lot of experience reading these books, because like, Doc is, he had any of them. And Dr. Morris just talked about recently in one of his videos, he talked about Dr. Jensen came to see him when he had some problems, and Dr. Morris put him on some stuff to clean out his bowels and some enemas and stuff. And he said that the amount of trash that Dr. Jensen got out of his own self, and talking about it too, so, and every single one of my clients that have started seeing progress with their health challenges, they seen stuff like that coming out,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that shows that the body is working hard on eliminating the old waste, because the body heals in reverse. It keeps going back farther and farther the longer you stick with the journey, and that's why it's very important to stay on the cleansing journey for long enough, because the less of the environmental and the less physical, the less emotional toxins that come in, the more the body can focus on the old. But if we have too much coming in at the same time while we're trying to eliminate, the waste from our body, it will only focus on what's most recently been deposited, and so that's why we have to make sure we have it very, very minute amounts that are coming in, for, currently, while we're trying to work on the old waste, and that's what's confusing sometimes for people, is because they don't realize they're not going anywhere because they're doing this, like some days they'll have good days and they'll go down deeper, but then they'll come back the next day because they'll have some emotional imbalance or something, or they'll fall off the wagon, and then their body has to work to get back to where it was, and so it's, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I can go for hours just talking about beyond just the physical, like the way I feel mentally and energetically. It's just, it's a whole new world, and it's such a different ballgame that it's too good to stop. And it's very different. Again, the second time around, it's very different now than the first time. The first round last year, I had a lot less energy. I mean, it fluctuates. I had days of more energy, days less, but in general, I have much more energy this time around than the round number one of last year. That's number one. And also I've been doing a lot of dry fasting in between last year and this year, of just short intervals of 3 days or 4 days or 2 days and things like that. But that's one thing. And then the weight, I do want to address that. And then I'll answer some of the questions here in the chat, and we'll open up to vocal questions if people want to unmute themselves.
Well, before you do that, Noah, we want to put the disclaimer again out there to everyone that
Mhm.
Noah has been doing lots of preparation in years even before this to get herself to where she could go this deep, because we have to be cautious. That's why even Dr. Moore said on some of his most recent videos, and even an interview that he just had with a lady, that he said that he's had to really back up and tell people to be really cautious with doing these deeper levels of fasting, because it can be too aggressive for where they're at on their health journey, because he was just saying that's why it can get really aggressive and how we have to be cautious. So that's why we want to keep putting the disclaimer out there that, work your way up to these deeper levels so that it's not too aggressive before your body mentally and emotionally and your spirit is ready for it.
Very true, Thad. Thank you for mentioning that. And I would like to add that the key to all of it, it's very true what that said on a physical level and emotionally, psychologically, to be prepared. And the foundation for all of it, and this is my focus always with everything that I share with people that I work with, and even in my own journey, that I come to learn that what really shifts someone's ability is how much you recognize who you are, and what we call self-love. Because you can have, even because I've seen it, people with not enough, a lot of preparation, actually, like coming from pretty toxic consumption, not necessarily fruit eaters for 10 years, perhaps even flesh consumption and whatnot, and going into a long juice feast or whatnot, and actually being really okay because their mental attitude and their why, and their the recognition of who they are and why they want to do it is so strong that it has the ability to overcome any toxicity in the body, actually. And when healing crises do arrive, they actually have that mental capacity to be with it. So there are many different factors, and we all have different paths, basically leading us to the same place, but different ways to go about it. And it's true what that said in terms of a disclaimer. This is my experience, Noah. It doesn't mean that it's going to be your experience or that you're ready to jump into a solid food vacation tomorrow, but also it might be the case that you are ready, just like I was told, Noah, solid food vacation, and something inside of me said yes, and I didn't look back. So it's really up to you to know where you're at, what's available for you. And then of course support is also key. That's why we have people like that and myself, and different groups in which you can be supported and guided, so you don't do it alone. Because there's a lot of gray areas between the black and the white, let's just say that.
That's right. Well, we just want you guys to be safe in your approach, because our egos and our mental state, we can say, oh, I can handle it, I can jump there faster when I'm ready, and not to get too excited and jump too quickly to the deeper levels, unless you have a life-threatening condition and you're doing it to save your life. That's the only stipulation.
So there's some nuances, and I also like to say, like, don't wait until you have a life-threatening anything. This is the thing, is like, in the eyes and the health history that you have, like when you fill a health questionnaire and you've got the history of your parents and your grandparents, this is where you're heading. I was heading in that direction of whatever I have running in my family, and in my eyes show it so clearly. But instead of getting to a point of where I'm bedridden with arthritis or getting a stroke or something, no, I decided to stop it before. And it begins with the fruits, it begins with different things, until you feel, like that said, ready emotionally, psychologically, physically, to go on an extended solitude vacation. Even if you begin with 30 days. I have a group right now that is doing a 30-day solitude vacation. That is also an amazing step. And then just don't limit yourself. And that's what I tell my beautiful friends in the group is, you don't know, you said 30 days, but you might go longer. So just keep it open, and
just take it one day at a time.
And take it one day at a time. Exactly.
Keep living in the now.
Always. Yes. Yeah. That's the key. That's why, like, I count the days, because as I said, it's like playing the game, and it's nice to share it with people. But for me at this point, it's, I've set a vision of going until the end of 2022. But at this point, it's more about, like, okay, I'm going to go till March because I started on September equinox, or a few days before, and I'm going to go until March equinox, so that's 6 months. But there's something inside of me that is very curious to see what happens if I complete a full year.
Yeah, Dr. Morrissey's talked about that before. He's talked about, some of his clients before have talked about going 365 days on nothing but juices,
Yeah. So we'll see. And again, I keep going one step at a time, and like that said, one moment at a time. So I'll keep you updated on the length. But let me answer a few questions here. Yvette asked, what did I eat after I finished 93 days last year? So all fruits, and that is always when you transition out of anything, out of any fast.
And preferably start with the high water rich
Oh,
fruits
absolutely.
first, like
Absolutely.
watermelon and stuff like that,
Absolutely. Yeah. I had
and
some.
especially if you're coming off of water or dry, but even juices, you still want to do that too, because you have to slowly wake back up the digestion, but I'll let you go ahead and answer.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. It was watery fruits, because it's not a complete dormant state. Like when you go on a dry fast, is the only, even water activates digestion on a very, very minimal degree, but it's only dry that is completely shut. And that's why dry fasting is, like, when it comes to healing, is on top when done correctly, properly, with the right preparation, as a side note. But with the juices, there's still minute digestion, but regardless, you always break with fruits and with the watery ones. You don't go to dates and bananas and mono.
And apples,
Yeah, even apples
too
is
much
too
fiber.
much. Too much.
Fiber.
Yeah, watermelon, papaya, and you chew really, 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 really well. And it was weird. Like, it wasn't enjoyable. It was really weird to have food again. I
keep your quantity small.
Small. Well, yeah, you'll
that's
get
very
full.
important, because as soon as you wake up, that part of yourself that says I could have real food again, then your body's like, just, you'll try to eat as much as you normally did before you went on your fast, and you'll find that your stomach has shrunk so much that you can't even tolerate even half of what you used to could.
Which I'm glad you mentioned that, Thad, because so much of my journey this past year was about watching the cycles and the patterns when it comes to food, and how crucial it is to really, again, invest the energy and the emotional level and the self-love, because you can go on a 90-day juice feast, and I see it time and time again, and it even happened with me as well, in which kind of like the beast wakes up, especially if you have history of eating disorders, which I did have. Then you got to be very, very mindful of how do you approach this. So that's why the focus is, it's important to focus on that love and on the emotional state. So when you transition out of a solitude vacation, like the monster doesn't wake up and the old patterns just show up again. So again, case by case, right? It just depends on the individual. But fruits always, I remember, because there's a way to transition according to John Rose, and it's you still stay on mainly juice on the first 3 days, and you start incorporating mono fruit meal. So once a day, the first day, and then you do 2, and then you do 3. And it's only after the 3rd day that you introduce the salad, if you want to. Now, I was just curious. And on the 4th day, I did have a salad, and I was disgusted. I couldn't even finish it.
Well,
I didn't even want it.
I would say that's way too soon.
Because I thought so too. Yeah.
Especially for 90 days. Now, I would say maybe 3 or 4 days going back to eating a salad after maybe 30 days. But if you've been 90 days on nothing but liquids, you need to at least wait a week before you eat anything really fibrous. Because that's going to help because I tried it. I came off of a 21-day water fast, and I tried to have a salad after a week of my first week, and my body rejected it, and I had bad pains.
Yeah.
But also I overate because I woke that part of myself back up too fast. So I'm just saying we have to be really cautious, because sometimes the digestion really shuts down strongly, and it takes a little while to get it. So that's why it's better to do it in a progressive manner. Keep just slowly incorporating more stronger fibrous foods until you can finally be, and especially it depends on what's in your salad. If your salad just mostly leafy greens and some tomatoes, some cucumbers, something like that, it's real soft, that's not as bad. But if you like to put carrots or beets in there, that's so fibrous.
Oh, no,
be careful with that.
No, definitely not. It was a simple
and
salad.
Then I would even be careful
lettuce,
with
lettuce and mango, I think it was.
Yeah, and then I would be careful even with like onions, because they're sulfury and all that, so it really goes back to the ingredients and what's in the salad.
And the bottom line, it's that talking about this is that fruits is that's the fruit for humans, not even salads, believe it or not, like maybe some tender greens, but ultimately we were designed to consume fruits. If we choose to consume anything solid, then the fruits are the easiest to digest, the least amount of waste that it created in the body. And so that's really the safest ticket when you transition out of a solitary vacation, is stick to the fruits for the first week, at least, and the watery fruits, and then maybe you start introducing some more dense fruits if you feel like it, but avoiding the fatty fruits like coconut and avocados and things like that.
And then just be cautious with any kind of dried fruits, like she mentioned, dates, or definitely any dehydrated fruits, because they're so devoid of water again,
and very condensed.
Yeah.
So Yvette is asking here if able to kill parasites whole on a solitary vacation, or do you need some herbs? So just to understand the world of parasite really is in the most concise way, to kill parasites, you do need the herbs. The herbs are, I just hands down, especially when it comes to parasites, you've got to bring, and for some people, like they're so infested, and as I said, it's not even just in your gut, that you got to bring the herbs. Those are the tools to help us. Now, parasites will naturally leave when they don't have a job anymore. And what feeds the parasites and the fungus is the waste. If you eat meat, or if you eat things that those microorganisms need to come and clean up, like Thad mentioned earlier, candida, we have it in the body, and they come in larger amounts when there's a job to be done. But if you don't create waste, if you just stay on fruits, parasites don't like that. So they're going to leave. But in most cases, like, you got to bring the herbs, because there's such a population of parasites that if you don't take care of that, it's going to be hell in terms of the cravings also, and the emotional aspects and the mental aspects. So herbs are essential.
Well, you have to remind yourself, you have to look at it from their point of view. You're their home. Why would they want to be kicked out of their home? So you have to work real hard to make it where it's not an environment for them to thrive and live in. And we have to remember, we have to retrain our brains to think of the environment in our body as the terrain. It's not the germ that's the problem, it's the terrain where the germ lives. If the terrain is clean, the germ can't live there. So everything's going to balance out. Your bacterial levels, your B12 levels, your parasites, all those things are going to balance out. The cleaner you get the terrain. So again, it goes back to cleaning of the body and where those organisms live. So same thing as Catherine was asking about the blastocyst hominins. Same thing. It's all about the terrain. The cleaner you get the terrain, those things will go away. It's the same thing when people have C. diff and a lot of that stuff. But again, you have to take it back to the personal journey of that individual, because the more antibiotics and sterilizing agents that person is subjected to, their bacteria levels may be so out of balance, their beneficial bacteria may be so low that's why they have more of a tendency to have problems with certain bacteria, even like C. diff. C. diff, just like the blastocyst hominins, it can cause lots of diarrhea and lots of a loss of your water and your electrolytes. But see, when you look at the history of those individuals that have C. diff, the doctors want to give them massive amounts of antibiotics when really they need to help their body to get cleaner, and they need more beneficial bacteria. There was a story I was reading from a great book. It was talking about that some people, the only thing that saves them from having C. diff, is a fecal transplant. It's an actual peel of someone's poo that's loaded full of beneficial microbes that helps their colon have a re-inoculation of those beneficial microbes that then helps them to get over the C. diff. And it's just really sad, because the medical association wants to keep giving them more antibiotics. There was a lady that she was on death's door. She was having diarrhea and she was throwing up and vomiting so much they couldn't keep her electrolytes stabilized. They'd already given her like 20 different antibiotics. So the only thing that saved her life was that fecal transplant that she got from the good bacteria. And see, we don't, again, like Noah said earlier, we don't don't need to let it get that chronic. We don't need to let it get to be that bad. So it's all like what Dr. Morris says. If these things get too out of balance, if the acids get too accumulating in our body, if the bacteria get too over accumulating in the body, if the acids win, if the acids dominate, they will win. Same thing as the parasites. So we have to help everything to not get so chronic. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much as I said at the beginning, Catherine. That's the answer is always the same. And like doing a 3-day this, a 3-day that is really not going to help when we have
scratching the surface.
Something like that. Yeah. And then if you just go back to the same old. Now, I want to say, because there's a lot of confusion even within the health food industry, that people think I'm eating healthy, that if I'm vegan, I'm healthy, and it's far from the truth. Things like beans, things like grains, and even cooked food alone is quite toxic to the body. It creates waste. So humans want to try and twist it around, but what if I have this, and what if I have that? And it's like, listen, this is what's going to bring you to health. This is what's going to bring you to health. Start to fast and eat just fruits, and maybe if you want to have a salad here and there and whatnot, but put yourself on a journey for at least, like, say, this year I'm going to dedicate it to my best health of my life, so my body has the environment that it can regenerate itself on a cellular level. And we are talking about what it is to do, really. And as I said, solitude vacation is one ticket. Fasting, fruits, it's like you cannot run away from that if you really want to address the core root of what's going on in your body and beyond just the physical implications. Okay, so it's not like, oh, take this for that, or take this for this. No, it's the same answer. It's that simple. But yeah, the mind just want to make it more complicated. It has to be more intellectual than that. Like, it can be that simple, but it is. Really, really is.
Yeah, it is. But it just goes back to our mind wants to overcomplicate it, and that's human nature. We want to have a tendency to overcomplicate things instead of keeping it simple.
Yeah, it might be complex because we're looking at the different terrain of each individual. That's the complexity that, as I said at the beginning, the answer is the same for all of us here. And then we look at the different layers because we have different backgrounds and different whatever is going on right now. That's the complexity, but the simplicity of it, it's we are all rivers going to the same ocean, and we all have same route to that ocean. So another question here from Rhonda. After many days on your solitude vacation, what detox symptoms have you experienced, and at what points? I'm on fruit right now and love to do hot yoga, but the dizziness happens immediately after getting off the mat. Just wondering what you've experienced along those lines. So I can't really say right now at one point. It really comes and goes. The detox symptoms are not as pronounced as they were last year. As I said, this time around, there's not that there's no detox going on, but it's just different. And some days, for me, mainly because I still have weak adrenals. So just like you, Rhonda, it sounds like it. If you feel dizzy getting up, low blood pressure. So that's what I'm working with. I have a very low blood pressure, weak adrenals. And so I feel it as weakness. Like when I know that there's a wave of detox coming, I usually feel weak. I feel tired. I don't have energy. On the emotional level, I might feel kind of not depressed, but that was experience that I had in the past, but I would just kind of feel unmotivated. And so those things will kind of creep up less and less, but that's what I experience. And then I see the release coming in the toilet, and then I mentally, I feel the correlation again with those low states, and then the release that I see. So it's hard to say what points, because it really is, there's no logic behind it. It's just different ways that come and go. And yeah, so that's my
let me add to it too.
Yeah.
Is that I've also given Rhonda an iridology reading, And so I'm not revealing any of her, private information that I know that she wouldn't like me to share. But Rhonda, remember when you look at your report, I showed that you have a weakness there and a radius solaris in your hypothalamus. Well, remember the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the adrenals, and the thyroid all regulate, especially the hypothalamus and the thyroid regulates your body temperature. And so when you're doing that hot yoga and you're getting your thyroid and your metabolism and all that, engaged, that's affecting, all these other areas of your body that have those weaknesses there. And so then that's making your adrenals feel that low blood pressure, and then it's making you feel those symptoms. So that's why you want to remember in the future, this is a really, really great example that you can take your symptomology and you can know how to better prepare yourself. The next time you're about to do the hot yoga, I recommend you to take a dosage of licorice root, preferably the tincture, and that way your body already has some of that herb in there that will help keep your blood pressure more stabilized, while you're doing the yoga. And then that way you won't get as dizzy as easy, because that's a great thing, because licorice root is a not only endocrine supporting herb, but it helps to raise the blood pressure. And especially when you're going into doing some kind of activity like that, that can be draining on the adrenals and the hypothalamus, because it's not only affecting the adrenals because the activity, but it's also affecting the body temperature, because the correlation between the hypothalamus and the thyroid with the temperature, and also the adrenals with the regulation of stress and cortisol production. So you have all those things going on. So we can take the symptomology, we can compare it to the eyes, we can compare all that, and we can see the story and how it unfolds. So see, that's why we talk about all this, because when you can take all that information, you can put it all together, you can see why you're having the symptomology that you're having. Yeah, I find it very fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating once you see just how everything is connected and the simplicity of it, really. And I'm going to second what Thad said here from my own personal experience, Rhonda. I as well, my adrenals are actually not that weak. It's my head, it's the pituitary, it's the hypothalamus in particular for me as well. You can see it in my eyes, and it's the gut. It's the gut. So that's the thing. It's like, it's a process. It's not an overnight thing, especially when it comes to the head congestion that comes from the gut. And as you saw in my eye, there are many, many layers to scrub. So you stay patient and you enjoy the journey. And I like to say that just surrender to the experience, accept the process, enjoy the process, and surrender to the experience, meaning that there's just no timeline or anything like that. Just
And
really
keep your gratitude. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was
go
rude.
ahead.
But I was saying, keep your gratitude very high.
Yeah.
Keep reminding yourself every day how grateful you are just to be able to see, just to be able to hear, just to be able to walk, just to be able to talk. All these things we take for granted, because that keeps you in that state of gratitude. That's that higher vibrational frequency from your emotional bodies that will keep you it will keep you easier to be not in the state of fear, anxiety, and worry.
And it's healing. It's because we can't just focus. I say this all the time. You can be on a solid food vacation, but if the gratitude is not there, the appreciation, if you're just antsy, or when is it going to end, or being all stressed out, and things do come up. So that's why it's important to have the knowledge and the information, but to really be in a space of complete trust and gratitude, because those energies are healing by themselves. So it's not just the practical things that we do. Again, you can be on juices for 90 days, but if you're all stressed out and in worry and in lack of appreciation, that's going to slow things down and perhaps even make things worse, believe it or not.
It can even make it harder for your body to let go, because you're not allowing yourself to let go. You're holding it in,
Yeah. But again, it's going back to our natural state, because our natural state is of gratitude and appreciation. So we got to clean whatever obstruct our body physically and also mentally and energetically to be in those natural states that we are just.
But we just have to remember, emotion stands for energy and motion. So see, everything's flowing, everything's changing. We just have to be able to flow with it and keep just trusting the divine flow of the universe, of God, everything, and just keep riding those waves of the ups and downs,
Yeah. So I know we going, like we said, an hour and a half that, and we almost here on like past 2 hours now. So let me just, before we wrap it up, and thank you for those that are still here. And if you have more questions, just type it in the chat. And I'm going to read a question here that was posted in the Telegram group, that somebody's asking, while doing a long juice feast and blending it with chronic feasting in between. And chronic feasting means just no consumption, or what is called dry fasting. How to stay grounded and present in this world. Sometimes it becomes difficult to stay in the body and remain a part of this world, as the consciousness remains so detached and beyond in the subtle world that it gets difficult to deal and understand the egoistic problems of this world. So it's a more of a spiritual question, which I really love. And I would say for this particular question that it's basically to be in this world but not of it. So you could be, well, number one is if you feel that you're too out there when you're on juice or non-consumption, and for many people that's the case, you got to do extra grounding practices on a regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, it's not even every day, but throughout the day. Somebody like you absolutely must live somewhere when nature is present, that you can be outside barefoot, lay on the ground, swim in fresh water if it's ocean or a river. You gotta do the practices that keep you grounded day in and day out. Be around trees and the earth for individual like this, to stay more grounded. And when it comes to the, oh yeah, go ahead.
I would just say bodies of water. That's also important too.
Yeah. And when it comes to the consciousness, it's actually, it's not a bad thing to be detached, in a sense that you don't get caught up in the drama. Because I can tell you for myself, like, yeah, I don't get on board with all, like he's saying here, the egoistic problems or whatever the show is showing. It's okay to be detached, not to ignore that that's what's going on, but we are powerful creators. And actually, when you don't get sucked in all of that, you stay detached, you have the ability to actually influence the script of what it is that we see in the world. So I don't necessarily see that as an issue, but it's a matter of just staying grounded and still interact with the world, but from an observer, from the observer's seat, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Don't get too attached to having an opinion about it one way or the other, you know, because what you put your focus on grows. So if you give too much focus on that, you're going to, you know, dwell too much on it. You're going to think too much on it. You know, like Noah was saying, it's okay to think about it in a real compassionate, detachable way, where you don't get too attached to, you know, and don't get the ego too involved, where the ego starts to have an opinion about it. You know, you stay real neutral about those things, you know.
And I want to say also the when it says here the egoistic problems of this world, that there's really no separation. That's another thing, is whatever we see in the world, it's somewhat of it's a reflection of the collective, and we are part of the collective, each and every one of us. So it's always, whatever we see out there, is to bring it in and to ask myself, well, if I'm seeing certain things, is not to say that I'm doing the same things, but if I look at the root of where it's coming from, if I'm still noticing egoistic problems in this world, then there's some sort of an ego thing going on here
within.
inside. Yeah, that okay, so let me clean that out. And the focus and the self-responsibility comes back to the I. So that's another way to look at it. It's not like the world is merely a reflection. It's just like when you're sitting in the movie theater, the movie that you see is the movie, but you're not going to go to the screen to try and change the movie.
Well, it's because people get triggered but your triggers are information that's helping you to be aware of what you need to work on. So really, we need to change it and be happy when we get triggered, because that shows us where we need to grow. Because the only reason why we would get emotionally or egotistically, irritated or out of balance from something going on outside of us is because that's a trigger. That's an opportunity to grow. So we have to retrain the brain to look at it as something beneficial, something helpful to us, and be glad that we're getting triggered, because that's helping us to see how we can take it deeper into it. We can feel deeper into it. And that's an opportunity to grow,
Yeah. Yeah. And the second question of the same person, for both of us, that of course, is, and it actually, it goes hand in hand with what I wanted to speak about, which is the weight. The detoxification is a great conscious journey, but how to deal with excessive thinness during this process and how to rebuild effectively. How can iridology be useful in rebuilding post-detoxification? So I want to address the first question here about the excessive thinness, which happens during detox, if it's on all fruit, or even when people go all raw at the beginning, and then especially when you start fasting and then going into the extended juice feasting. So what I'm noticing this time around is that it seems like I'm still thin, but it seems like my weight has stabilized, which is a huge breakthrough and a huge testament of how the regeneration process is now at a higher level for me. Where last year I really just kept dropping. And if you even see that video that I did last year, it was right at the end there of my Purification, and I'm really, really, really thin. And so it's the thing with the thinness, and I know a lot of people are scared of that, and I'm saying this with a disclaimer, like Thad said earlier, case by case. In general, though, it's part of the process. The body is going to eliminate the weak tissues, the toxic tissues, and part of it is that the weight is going to drop. Once the body becomes, as I said earlier, energy efficient, and it begins to regenerate itself on a cellular level, the exact same food or liquids that brought the weight down is actually going to bring the weight back up. So that's why I have issues with like refeeding and rebuilding and da la 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 la. No. That's not, because you haven't gone really all the way. You've done a lot, absolutely. And for most people, it kind of needs to be this. Okay, I'm doing 90 days, or even if you're doing a whole year and then you choose to go back to food and whatnot. But the thinness, the shedding of weight is part of the process that cannot be avoided. And it's not a big deal for people that might be have excessive weight, but it is an issue for many people that already start from a very thin frame. But that's just part of the process. And rest assured that if you do go the distance, and if you do trust your body, and if you know that your body has the ability to regenerate itself, then the weight will come back. And your body also knows the perfect weight for you. And it's not a number on the scale. It's not how you look in the mirror. It's what is your body wants for itself, which is usually, though, it's low amount of fat, it's slender, it's fit. That's a vital body. It's never going to be like overweight. You might have a bigger frame than somebody else, but a vital body has low body fat and is fit naturally.
Well, what I would like to add to it is, let's take it deep into looking at it from this angle too. What I'm about to mention is that on a collective psychological level, they have for centuries now, especially the last 100, 150 years, they have been purposely wanting us to be an over-consuming society of people, and
Yes.
so we've gotten to the state on a collective energetic level where we shame people for looking what's supposed to be normal body types and instead try to be the plus size. Like they're even changing the models and the mannequins to be plus size now to try to make it even more normal. We're trying to get the world like the whole Wall-E movie. If any of you seen that movie where they just got bigger and bigger and they normalized it more and more. And so then when those of us learn how to work through the process of elimination for purification, then that's when society tries to make us feel bad about vanity, and we start to think, oh, I'm wasting away, oh, I'm dying, oh, I'm starving, all these names and titles that they put on it, to scare us and to make us doubt what we're doing and make us stop right when the body's getting down to the deeper levels that it needs to, because Dr. Morse even said it himself. He said, if you have a certain degree of malabsorption, expect you to get skinny on your journey. That's
Yep.
just to be expected, and we need to reassure people that it's normal and that it's not going to cause damage. It's not going to make it hard for your body to recover. It's not going to affect, your vanity and the way you feel about yourself. If anything, it's going to make you more beautiful later, because true beauty comes from purification from within, because true beauty comes from within. If you want to have the best complexion, the best everything, it comes from within, so, if anything, you want to embrace that purification process. You want to, because remember, all the most heaviest toxins are stored in the fat. Well, remember, it's not only the fat we see visibly on the outside, it's around all the organs too, because there's been many people that have said for every amount of fat you can see visually on the outside of your body, you have the same amount around your organs and glands, of your inside of your body, because the skinnier you get it, the more of that toxic waste comes out of the fat and those other pockets from a different angle, and saying, I don't care if I have all these people coming up to me saying, you look like you're, because I even had the same thing happen. Parents and my ex-girlfriend and all these people saying, Thad, you got cancer, because they had never seen me that skinny before, because I got all the way down to 140 pounds, 140, 150 pounds when I was doing my water fasting, and right now I'm around about, 180, 200, somewhere around there. And so my point that I'm making is that when you get lower than what's normal and what people have seen you at, especially when you used to be close to 300 pounds, they start to really worry. And then that puts that fear back onto you and makes you doubt what you're doing, when really you have to stand firm and say, this is my personal journey. I respect that you feel concerned about my personal journey, but this is my personal journey. Please do not puke your emotions and your judgment on me just because you're worried about what I'm doing. I appreciate and I value that you're being concerned for me, but you're over worrying about something you don't have any education on, because, so many people, I even had a lady came in the health food store and confronted me about it. And I said, well, people don't need to get upset at people when they get real skinny from doing fasting. People need to be more worried about what they're eating and consuming. A lot of these people are out there eating processed meats and animal products for breakfast. And she looked back at me and she said, so when I ate steak the other morning for breakfast, you're saying that's bad? I'm like, well, I didn't say that. I mean, I wasn't saying it directly to her, but I was explaining that, that's how common our culture is. And so my point that I was making to her is that we need to retrain us to think that that's worse than just someone trying to get skinny from doing a detox or a cleanse, but see, that's how disconnected people are. They don't stop and think about that, because what I actually did mention is I said, we need to be talking about people that are over there eating McDonald's every day, not people over here doing a fasting and just, trying to cleanse, but we over stigmatize and over, normalize these things that are unhealthy, and it's very sad, because it shows that that's why the culture is the way they are.
Yeah, indeed. And just as a side note here, or not a side note, but he's asking about rebuilding too. If you want to look at some of the things that, if you want to go that route, I don't really believe in that. That's not my approach. Especially if you're into the pranic nourishment, then you know that we are nourished and can be built, not from what we've been told and what we've been taught, and people demonstrate that all over. But in terms of food, if you want to go that route, then things like, yeah, like an alfalfa juice, barley greens, yeah. The green juices can help rebuild.
Moringa. Yeah, moringa's good.
Yeah, things like that. But really, really, like, because I like truth, and the truth is when your body is energy efficient, you're going to build on eating one mango a day. You know, you can be as strong as a tiger, and agile and flexible. And I'm answering your question here too, Catherine. If you're going to lose muscle mass during this process, yes, because if your muscle is built on a toxic tissue, which is the case for most people, then you're going to lose all that is that the body doesn't want. However, though, then you're going to build lean, clean muscle that is that much more efficient and strong and stronger than what you had before. So in the process, just let me finish this then, and then I'll let you chime in before I wrap it up. Just like Dr. Moore says, when you take your car to the shop, in the process, it looks horrible. And if you walk in and you say, like, what are you doing, dude? You're like ruining my car. Like, work in progress.
That's right.
And the thing is that many people don't have the patience, or there's, like Thad said, pressures from outside, or the things that we've been conditioned,
families, or
whatever it is, that people just don't walk the distance, because something comes in, or own internal voices that sway them off course. And then they say, oh, you see, it doesn't work.
Yep. Yeah. And what I was just going to add is, remember, Dr. Moore says fruits are the cleaners, greens are the builders. And every one of your largest plant-based animals, they eat high amounts of the amino acids that come from those greens. That's how gorilla gets so big. He eats mostly those greens, and he eats lots of fruits too, but he eats a lot of those greens. And, so we want to incorporate both. But as Noah was saying, and that's what I was talking about too, is that the more you clean up the body in all areas, your joint tissue, your muscle tissue, your every part of your body, and the more you clean it up, like Dr. Morse gave the analogy, you're trying to remodel a house where you get the foundation really clean, because you don't remodel it on top of a dirty foundation. Okay, well, then you totally clean up the body, and then, as Noah was saying, maybe the first few cleanses that you do, the first few flushes you do, the body will lose more muscle mass and get more skinnier. But then as you build back healthier tissue, when you build back naturally, then you're going to build back healthier muscle. So the next time when you do a fast, you won't lose that healthy tissue as easy or as much, because it was more healthier tissue. And then as you keep going through these cycles, like Noah's talking about, and like we talk about in our communities, your body won't get as skinny, and it will build back stronger and stronger every time. So eventually you'll get to the state where you'll do a cleanse again, and your body won't have to clean up as much, and it'll be more for maintenance, and you won't lose as much mass, so it'll be more in that stage for more maintenance than it will be, for actually deep cleansing. So I encourage my clients to do rounds of 3 process: cleansing, maintaining, or the maintenance, where you're just trying to maintain what's your progress from cleansing, and then the building phase with just natural things that are like the greens, and maybe small amounts of the omega-3, like some hemp seeds or chia seeds or flax seeds, because we need more omega-3s, but you want to get those as fresh as you can and in smaller amounts. amounts, but like we all talk about, though, those are not needed as much during the normal phase of our lives, because those are more of your building foods. But essential fatty acids are what we need when we consume fat. We actually need those essential fatty acids even more than we need normal fat, because that's what we need, and you can get it some from watercress. You can get it some from other sources besides, and you can get it some from some fruits too, the omega-3s. But I'm saying for people that are really deficient, sometimes they have to bring in those fresh seeds too, but again, that's in the building phase, because then after a time, you will still build up some metabolic residue from those seeds, even though they're the kind of seeds we need to consume when we want to consume fats like that. But then you'll have to do another cleanse to clean up the body from that consumption of that metabolic, breakdown of that food, So that's kind of the way to think about it, because that's why if I was to talk to a bodybuilder and they were really trying to bodybuild, then I would encourage them to bring in the things like hemp seeds and omega-3s along with their greens, because you need because hemp seeds are loaded full of amino acids, just like the greens, and also watercress and all that. But that's for someone that's really trying to build lots of mass, in a healthy way, Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, we go back to where we started, that the source, is to make the body efficient, that you don't need to rely on all these things and consume really less, and you'll be amazed of how little you actually even need to do in order to build muscle, unless, like Thad said, if you want to be like a bodybuilder, which is not necessarily healthy, but if that's your thing, then go for it. But if you just want to stay fit and strong, you need to do very little, and you'll be amazed, just like, whoa, my muscles just show right away after like nothing. So it's becoming energy efficient. The more energy efficient your body, the cleaner your body is, the more energy efficient it is. And then the less you need to consume, and the more you can do, the more you're available for on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So it always comes back, no matter how many questions you're going to ask, and we can give you bazillion answers here, Thad and I, but it always comes back to the simplicity of like, okay, we showed you the hub, we showed you the center hub, and you clean that, you relieve the entire body from a heavy load, and give your body the opportunity to regenerate itself, so you can experience these levels of vitality and strength and flexibility and clarity that is our true nature, our natural state. And remember that it's a process, and if you established in self-love, then it's like, is there anything better to do?
Yeah. And also remember, don't become hypochondriac or obsessive over the journey to Well-Ville, or because then you get it to where you're always obsessed over, I have to be this way, or I'm not gonna be happy. When it's about the journey to be enjoyed. It's about enjoying the process. It's because there's always going to be more change. There's always going to be more stuff to work on. There's always going to be deeper levels. You're never going to get to a perfect state, because perfection is a wounding pattern and illusion anyways. Life is perfectly imperfect, because that's the irony of life, so don't take it too far. Don't get too obsessed about it. Just find a healthy balance, and then just enjoy the process,
Enjoy the ride. Exactly. Well, friends, thank you so much. Those of you that stayed here this whole time. Wow, thank you. I mean, Thad, we were like 2.5 hours, and I know we can keep going for so long, because it's such a true passion for both of us. And again, thank you for joining, and thank you for being inspired and being motivated. And
yes, and we'll do this again sometime too, and we'll do it on different topics, because we just want to share this information to get it out there to the communities and get it out there to people that need it, and so, we really appreciate the opportunity that we can talk to those that really value this information, because it is such a small percentage of the people in the world that are even going to be open in their mind to willing to try it, because it really puts a lot of pressure on some people mentally and emotionally, because they have to step so far out there from what they're traditionally used to with their family units, and so it just takes lots of braveness, and it takes lots of saying that this is my personal soul journey. I love my family, I love all these other people, but this is important to me,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 100% that. Thank you for mentioning that. And also to remember that small steps, again,
That's right.
you may not be ready to start a 90-day vacation tomorrow, but what are you ready to implement? What are you, it's like, depending on who you are, where you are at, nothing is too little, nothing is too small. There's no such thing, because the one little step that you are able to take tomorrow is going to lead you to a vacation of 100 days, maybe a year from now or 5 years from now. It doesn't matter. So
That's right.
whatever, that's the message here that I would love to leave you with, is to just tune in with yourself. What is one step that you can start, like right now or tomorrow, not next year, not 3 years from now, but right now. It can be as super tiny or bigger, but one thing that you can implement, one thing that you can commit to. And yes, we are coming into the holiday season
Yeah.
in the majority of the world, and it's actually the best time, like Thad said. Like, just if we keep perpetuating the same traditions and the same unhealthy attachments, actually, and unhealthy traditions, just to please our families, or not wanting to be the odd one that is not eating the turkey or whatever they put on the table. Maybe this year you are the brave one. It's like, you know what, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
gorge on Christmas and get drunk on food. I'm actually going to do something different, and actually share more health with my family because I love them.
I have one quick example is I
Yeah.
did one of my, I think it was either my first or my second 21-day water fast that I did. I did it in November of 2015. And I remember Thanksgiving, I was still on the fast, and they, my ex-girlfriend's parents, they brought me a bowl of ice, for when I was sitting there at Thanksgiving with them all, and they were like doing it as a joke, but still I didn't give in because I wasn't ready yet to break it. So I just still, visited with them and everything. And I was going to be open about it, when normal people or some people would be hesitant to even, go around people like that. But sometimes when we have to stand up for what we need to do for ourselves,
Yeah.
and while I'm talking, what I want to leave everyone with is, we very much appreciated talking with you all, but I wanted to leave you with is just remember cause and effect. Remember that universal rule. Be aware of every action you take. Your thoughts can create your reality. Your voice is like your wand that creates your reality, like your magic wand. Your actions come from the thoughts and the words you speak. So you have to be aware of every action that you take, because you want to think in your mind, are these actions going to create the reality I want to experience, or is this going to create a reality that I don't want to, that's just continuing these same patterns that I've lived all my life? So the more we're aware of that universal law of cause and effect, then we can be aware of every action we take, and we can ask ourselves, is this an action that's leading to my betterment of myself and betterment of my life experiences, or is this holding me back? And don't try to be too perfect on yourself either, but just try to be more aware of the actions you're taking, because then you can keep saying, well, today I feel good and I want to invest more into what I want to see come true. Go to bed dreaming about what reality you want to see come true. Don't go to bed dreaming or thinking about your worries and concerns and thoughts and all those things that are negative. Try to go to bed thinking about the things you want to see come true in your life. Yeah.
Oh, that. Well said. Well said. Yeah. So again, thank you, everyone. And if you're watching the recording and you found this to be valuable, please share it. If it's on the YouTube that you're finding this, or whatever channel you're coming to this video, then just share it, because this is important, as we know. And
Yeah, and before I end, I just want to say I'm still having an iridology contest where I'm giving away an iridology package, and the deadline to enter that is December the 15th. So if you're interested in that, just contact me and let me know, and I'll give you the instructions on how you can enter the contest.
okay, excellent, excellent. So yep, that's that. And I highly recommend, if you've never
Thank
had
you,
an
guys.
iridology reading also. Um, that is, as I said, is wonderful. I do them as well, but that is he's more passionate, not more passionate, but he likes it more than I do. I like to work with people for sure, but Thad is the I guy, and maybe we can team up. That you can be the I guy and I'll do other things, and that everybody stays in their zone of genius and pleasure and joy.
Yeah. I just
All
like
right.
to help wherever I can help, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Just being of service. So thank you, friends. Have a beautiful rest of your day or your evening, wherever you may be, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes. Much love to you all, guys.
Bye
See
for
you
now.
next time. Bye-bye.